This is The Rich Eisen Show.
This is one of my favorite shows.
Thank you.
Live from The Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles. The Rich Eisen Show.
He is Denver Bronco Von Miller. Now that you have COVID-19, you hear so much talk about when's the country going to open up.
I feel like we should take our time and really just, figure all this out.
Today's guests, Bleacher Report NFL columnist Mike Freeman, host of NBCSN's Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio, quarterback consultant Jordan Palmer, plus three-time NBA champion PJ Armstrong. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
All right. Welcome to this edition of the Rich Eisen Show. We're live from our Los Angeles studios. We are well and healthy. Knock on wood if you're with me. Hopefully everybody's knocking on wood wherever they are watching us on youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show for the first of our 3 hours here today. Pleased to welcome in the audience listening to us on Sirius XM Channel 211 Dan Patrick Radio. We welcome all the 454 crew sitting in our chat room on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, and BCSN will join us at the top of hour number 2. My guys are at their posts today. Good to see you guys. Mike Del Tufo, my audio executive.
Good to see you, Rich.
And Chris Brockman. Good to see you. Christopher, good to see you.
What's new?
You know what's, I guess what's old is what's new.
Yeah.
Last night, watched episodes 1 and 2 of The Last Dance.
Did you watch live? I was asking all of my friends this. Was this something you were like, I have to tune in right at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern to be involved in the online chatter? Did you watch live?
Christopher, is this the first time we've met?
No.
When was
That
the
would be
last?
awkward.
Back in the day, before, just before Chris became a sensible, responsible human being, a father of children,
can't believe
father
you're
of a
saying
child,
those words.
father of a child, masculine child. Decided to name Cage
Boom. Strong.
before you found Sarah Tiana,
Indeed.
a lovely, lovely, wonderful woman on planet Earth,
Yes.
mother of your child, Cage.
Indeed.
Christopher, you spent Sunday nights in my home on occasion
Often?
watching Sunday Night Football.
Often.
Suzie Schuster, my wife, would make sure that you were taken care of.
Yes.
Food, drink.
All of the above.
On occasion, you might have met a nanny or two in my house.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I just went there.
I don't know what you're saying.
Do you think at 6 o'clock Pacific time yesterday, I was able to settle in front of that television set
I know.
as I asked all day? I'd planned to do this all day. Do you think I was able at 9 Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific time to settle into a chair, drink in hand,
You got it?
No.
and watch The Last Dance on time? Do you think I was able to do that, Christopher?
0.0.
Would you care to answer the question you posed to me yourself, Christopher?
No, I don't.
That would be correct,
I
Chris.
didn't either. I was just wondering. It seemed like, because it had a Game of Thrones feel to it, where you kind of needed to watch it as it was happening.
Well,
Yeah.
it had the feel of a sporting event. The country getting around a television set to take in a sporting event together.
Yep.
As we are going to do for the NFL draft on Thursday night. It had been, when was the last time the country did that? Even I mean, you could say, I'd like to say, the Combine on NFL Network. But
sure.
But that is still such a hardcore event for so many people to grab. Was it the Super Bowl? I'm serious.
Where we all watched an event together?
Where people who aren't so hardcore sports fans, or they heard about it and want to see what it's about.
Super Bowl.
I tried to get my kids to sit down and watch. I tried to get my kids to sit down and watch the documentary, but they were too busy on this infernal game Roblox on their iPads. Okay, and then they eventually came in and wanted to see, and Suzie and I we watched it together around 40 minutes in. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, that's about
Okay,
when
around 40
I
minutes
started
in is
like
when we were able to settle down together.
About 6:45.
And, she grabs a drink, I grabbed a drink, we sit down, we watch it, and I was lamenting, I want my kids to know. I said to Xander, my oldest, 11, I'm like, I want you to know who Michael Jordan is. And he looks at me over his glasses, he goes, Dad, because he's beginning to start thinking I'm a little bit of a Okay. He looks at me over his glasses. He goes, Dad, I know who Michael Jordan is. And I'm like, you know who Michael Jordan is, but do you know who he was?
Right.
Okay. He's not just the guy whose shoes you like to wear. And so I was lamenting that my kids were not there until the cocaine circus was mentioned.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then,
I'd never heard that before.
I was dying.
That's interesting.
well, Kevin Clark, who's going to join us on Thursday's edition of the Rich Eisen Show, right around this time on draft day, had a brilliant tweet. Did you see his tweet?
I was off Twitter
Brilliant.
during the show. I didn't want to be involved
Tweet.
in that.
I think it's been liked almost 80,000 times.
All right,
That's
hold
how
on.
brilliant it was.
Let's take a look here.
Talking about Jordan's rookie season when he was with Chicago, and he knocks on a door during, I guess, preseason, exhibition season. He's hearing people on the other side of the door, and he opens the, like, shh, be quiet. And they open the door, and he sees what's going on in there.
Right.
And he mentions how the Bulls, they called it the cocaine circus.
Yeah, Mike said lines on this side, weed on this side, women
on
over
this
there.
side. I'm like, whoa, okay. Now, if Roblox isn't so damn infernal,
Yeah.
Go ahead, read Kevin Clark's tweet from The Ringer. It's
Yeah, he
brilliant.
said every member of the 84-85 Bulls watching in their living room right now is explaining to their family that they weren't in the cocaine circuit.
They were not part of it. I don't know.
I don't know what that means.
They became the unfrozen caveman
What?
Chicago
I
Bull.
don't
Like,
get it.
your term rails confuses me. I don't know what talk. I mean, there were no locomotives.
Ringling Brothers.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Also, the best part was Mike said he didn't drink then, and then during the interview, he clearly
Oh,
had.
yeah.
He clearly had.
Dude, he wasn't that was a full hand. That was a fist of a tumbler next to him.
And he had about a 10-inch cigar and a whole
Yeah.
4 fingers.
Dude.
His eyes were all.
I saw that.
It was great.
God bless.
I mean, he's the goat, man. He's the goat.
Just going to sit back,
He's
pour
the best.
myself a fifth,
I mean,
of whatever.
just take the
Was
handle.
that bourbon? Was whiskey or something?
Whiskey.
right?
It was brown.
It looked like brown.
Okay.
It was
and
brown.
you-
It was
you know,
brown.
I'm going to get one of those cigars that's about a foot long,
Yeah.
and I'm going to sit here and I am going to slag on Jerry Kraus as long as I possibly can.
Oof.
And this is what we'll talk about again at the top of the next hour as well when NBCSN audience joins us. Jordan said, prior to this that he wasn't going to come out looking like a rose.
He did.
That people were going to kind of think he's a terrible guy.
Yeah.
Based on, I would think, on the way that he drove a lot of his teammates crazy or got on their case or was particularly mean-spirited in getting on their case or was particularly tough to get along with as a teammate because, he doesn't suffer any fools. And this is why so many Hall of Fame athletes aren't coaches. This is why Phil Jackson's a coach. Phil Jackson was not a Hall of Fame New York Knickerbocker. He was an important part of the Red Holtzman championship years. But you don't see Hall of Fame players becoming coaches because they don't suffer fools gladly. Coaches don't, obviously. But Hall of Fame players, you're a Hall of Fame player for a reason. You're talented, yes, but you have a fire that burns within that is unrivaled. Not everybody has the same mindset as a Hall of Fame player. And that might be the difference between being great and Hall of Fame great. So, Jordan, I was expecting to see practice sessions where he was particularly difficult. We did see some of it. And for those for whom this is the first time you're seeing this stuff, you might be sitting there saying, oh, he's just being like Kobe was towards the end of his Laker tenure that we saw. He was getting all over everybody. Well,
Sure.
Kobe got that from
Yes.
Jordan
Sure did.
because he was emulating Jordan. And I'm sure Jordan was telling him stuff like, this is the way I've got this mindset, young squire. And Kobe's like, I feel the same way, and I'm going to do the same damn thing because I have multiple rings. I can fill up one hand with the rings that I have. So I saw that last night, and I'm like, okay, I was expecting this. But the guy who comes across the worst, at least 1/5 in, is Jerry Kraus, the general manager of the Bulls, who was the guy who did put the team around Jordan, didn't draft Jordan. It was Rod Thorne, who many fans might recognize as the deputy commissioner for all the years that David Stern ceded the stage to him after he got booed like crazy in the first round of NBA drafts, and Rod Thorne would announce the next round. But Rod Thorne was a general manager of the Bulls, who, as they quickly walked through draft night, Hakeem Olajuwon, number 1 overall, can't argue with that. Certainly, since they you need a big man, and Olajuwon is one of the best that's ever played.
And a hometown guy, went to Houston,
Correct.
drafted by the Rockets.
And then the Blazers, well, we already have Drexler there.
Yeah.
And let's get Sam Bowie. And as everyone pointed out, nobody saw Jordan becoming Jordan. But when Jordan fell to the Bulls 3rd overall, I turned to Suzie as we're sitting there watching, and I said, jackpot. Jackpot. That's 199th overall for the Patriots. Jackpot. That's what everybody's hoping for on Thursday night in the NFL. Jackpot. You don't know right now. It's pulling that one-arm bandit of the draft, and it comes up, maybe comes up jackpot. You won't know for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 from now. But damn, man, you learned about Jordan fast. You learned about him fast in Chicago. You knew he was something special. They said, it took all of 2 practices to know he was the best player on the team. It took all of 2 weeks to know that he was the best player in the NBA. Or 2 months.
Yeah, he said he found his stride in the 3rd game.
How about that Bob Knight soundbite that they pulled when he was before he played
Olympics
in the
coach,
Olympics?
yeah.
Bob Knight said he's the best basketball player he's ever seen.
Guy who coached
1984.
Isaiah Thomas.
Oh,
and
come
all kinds
on.
Of Hall
We
of
could go down
Famers
his resume, right?
I mean, wow.
Called Jordan the best basketball player he's ever seen, and that was before Michael Jordan played a minute as a professional basketball player.
How about Rod Thorne pointing out that he was fortunate that the draft happened before the Olympics, because if maybe it happened after the Olympics, maybe Mike goes number 1 to Houston, or Portland definitely takes him at number 2. I thought that was interesting.
But Jerry Kraus comes across as a guy who, is the heavy here. Figuratively and literally, how they would make fun of his weight, make fun of his height, and a guy who, it appears, could not get over, despite building the team around Jordan that Jordan needed to have. And I'm curious as to the lineage of how Phil Jackson got hired, that I'm sure is going to come, because what we're about to see, I think, in the next 2 episodes is the bad boy era of Detroit, who was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, they were the last impediment in Jordan's career. Were the bad boy Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, no doubt.
That was it. Because after he vanquished the Detroit Pistons and the Jordan rules, which was beat the crap out of him with whomever, and also put Joe Dumars on him. Joe Dumars was pretty damn special of a basketball player who didn't get the credit because he wasn't Isaiah Thomas, and he didn't beat you up like Lambeer, and he didn't beat you up like Mahorn and the rest of those guys who I despised, man. I hated the bad boy Pistons. They were great when I was in college.
They were a great villain for the NBA.
Oh,
at that
my
time.
gosh. And what they did is and the rules that you see now that you can't, you can only use your forearm on people. They had to reverse what they set in motion that Pat Riley then brought to the Knicks, which was beat everybody up.
In Miami, too.
But the bad boy Pistons were the last impediment for Jordan. And then when he got past them, look out. To the point where, I'm sitting there with Suzie again. She's hearing my monologue during this whole thing. When they show Jordan winning his national championship, making the shot as a freshman, the final shot as a freshman. And, of course, it was against Ewing's Georgetown Hoyas. I mean, literally standing in Ewing's way every step of the way, Michael Jordan. And then when Jordan went and played baseball, like Charles Smith stepped in the way or something, all right, not going to go down that wormhole. But Jordan was in the way of everybody up until, there was a period before Phil Jackson arrived. But Jerry Kraus put the team together. Mm-hmm. And Jordan himself will point out, hey, I can only do so much. Like, say, drop 63 against the Celtics. That was amazing.
Yeah, still lost the game.
I know, still lost the game.
Well, like Mike said, he's great friends with Charles Oakley even to this day.
Right.
He said that trade kind of helped us get over the hump a little bit by getting a big man, Bill Cartwright.
But Kraus did not draft Jordan. He did not draft Michael Jordan. And I think that was the reason why he was so upset deep down throughout this entire tenure of all the championships of not getting the credit and never had the respect of Jordan. And it seems like it was born out of the fact that Jordan had that minutes restriction placed on him when he was coming back from his injury in year 2.
14 minutes a game.
A guy who will never let that go. Burn him once, it's over. Burn him once, it's over. But I will say this, and B.J. Armstrong's coming up in our third and final hour of this show, and I want to ask him this. Kraus was really only, when it came to giving Pippen that contract and not renegotiating it and all of that, he was only doing what Jerry Reinsdorf wanted him to do. And Reinsdorf, in that beautiful suit,
He looked good.
can sit there and basically say, I told Pippen not to sign the contract. But when you sign a contract, I don't want to hear from you again.
Right.
How's that Jerry Krause's fault? He was only doing what Reinsdorf told him to do. Reinsdorf's a guy, at one point, Suzie turns to me and she's absolutely right. And I'm wondering if you all out there had the same thought. When Jerry Kraus says Phil's not coming back as coach after this year, why doesn't Reinsdorf step in and say no?
Well, I think
Jerry Krause,
Reinsdorf.
no.
I think Reinsdorf was the reason Phil came back in '98 at all.
Well, why can't Jerry Reinsdorf tell Kraus, tell Tim Floyd to stay in Iowa State? Why can't the rebuild go down with Phil? And why can't Pippen be part of the rebuild? Jordan can still be on the back end of his career, stay here. Jordan's going to wear 45 or 23 for as long as he damn well pleases. Pippen's going to stay here. Let's pay him. And let's figure out, Jerry, how to put everybody else around with Phil, too. In the same way that I guess Kraft stepped in and said, we're going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. And we're sticking with Tom Brady. In the same way that they couldn't figure out how to keep Brady this time. Why is Kraus the heavy here? Completely and totally. They're still an owner of the team, right? I can't wait to see how the next 8 shows pan out on that front. Because it's bizarre. It was bizarre then. I remember then.
Yeah, it was really weird.
As it's now been reminded now. How the hell do you not keep that team together?
Could you imagine all of this taking place now?
Oh, my God.
That was my thought. Imagine Bob Kraft, after the Patriots beat the Falcons, telling Bill Belichick, hey, Bill, even if you go 16-0 this year, you're not coming back. That's essentially what happened.
Well, if Brady was still there, yeah. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
I mean, and we'll dive into that a little bit more at the top of the next hour, and then B.J. Armstrong will join us in the third hour of this program. He wasn't in much of last night's broadcast, but we will see from him and hear from him later on in our third hour of this show. Up until then, we're going to be very draft heavy. I'll be very honest with you. The NFL draft is coming up on Thursday night. Jordan Palmer is going to join us right before B.J. Armstrong. He is the throwing coach of Joe Burrow. Do you know who else he has been throwing a lot or had spent a lot of time with, I imagine, before coronavirus hit? Don't worry. I will just fill you in on it. Jordan Love. So
Nice.
Jordan Palmer will be joining us on this program, top of hour number 3. Those are, the quarterback class. We all know Burrow's going to go where he is. Where's Tua going to land? And then, of course, Jordan Love's out there, too. And how about the news that Joe Judge apparently FaceTime interviewed Justin Herbert? What's that
baby.
about?
Come on, Giants.
What the hell would Joe Judge be doing on the phone? with Justin Herbert. Mike Florio is going to be first up on the NBCSN broadcast. Pro Football Talk. He is on the show top of hour number 2. But right now I turn to the phone lines and find a friend of the program and a friend in general. And one of the best that Bleacher Report puts out there for sure to give us all news and information. And there's a lot of talk about Odell Beckham potentially being on the move still. That rumor's been out there, and it seems to be gaining a bit of steam. And to talk about that and the rest of the NFL draft that's coming up from Bleacher Report, Mike Freeman. How are you, Michael?
Very good, my man. First, I got to say, what you do with the draft and St. Jude's, and I mean, it's really amazing, and I just want to make sure I said that to you. I haven't said that to you yet. It's fantastic.
Thanks, Mike.
What you do, and it's very appreciated. And will Beckham ever be? He may never be traded, but it's this stupid rumor that won't go away.
Well, why? Why do you think that rumor won't go away, Mike?
It's because some of it is because when I spoke to people about it, some of it is because they don't think he's a perfect fit in that offense. They think he's not. They don't think Baker Mayfield is that accurate of a passer, and that will tend to frustrate Beckham, and that chemistry isn't quite there. You saw some of that. Some of the chemistry was lacking last season. That's because they're so new together, and that could really improve this year, and they have a real head coach this year. So all of that could really dramatically change very quickly, but it's this feeling, and I think it's a wrong one, Rich, that Beckham can't get along with anyone. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think he's that bad a guy. He's a hard worker. He's very talented. But he has this perception in the league that he is a troublemaker and can't get along with people. And they think that situation there is explosive potentially. I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel like he gets a little bit of a bad rap, but I also think that there's some truth to it, that he's not a perfect fit with that quarterback in that offense. But this is a big year. We'll see this year what happens.
Mike Freeman, a Bleacher Report here on the Rich Eisen Show. And you know what? I know he, screamed at kicking nets, right? And we all know that he was part of the famed boat crew the days before a huge playoff game, the Giants' last playoff game that they played in Green Bay, and then punched a hole in the wall, et cetera, so on and so forth. But again, I've heard the same thing too, Mike, that his teammates love him, and that they get a big kick out of him, and that when he scores and he makes a big play, that just there's few players in the NFL that can, when they make a big play, can lift the entire team. So the question is what are you hearing is supposedly the bad mix between him and Mayfield?
It's not that there's any kind of personality clash. It's just that Baker Mayfield has some problems with accuracy, and will he be able to get better at that and just connect with Beckham? That's the big issue. But what you hit on there is dead on about his teammates in New York. A lot of the players really liked him. In Cleveland, a lot of the players really like him. He's very well liked in that locker room and appreciated. And when you talk to teammates about him, as I've done repeatedly, first thing they'll tell you is how hard he works and how supportive he is of people around him, and how the media sort of blows up some of this stuff. But yeah, this is going to be, I think, constantly around because of Beckham's personality. It is explosive, and the belief that he's not a great fit there. This season will determine where that goes. Where that goes this year will determine, and that Browns team could be really good because they got a lot of talent. So it could be this season will determine where and when Beckham, where he goes, how long he stays in Cleveland, if he stays for a long time, if he stays for a short time.
Yeah, I guess you could say, Mike, that the annual video. Remember, every team used to have like a video that would come out for the season. The Browns video going in is this Browns team could be really good, and then the video coming out is the Browns team could have been really good, and then that's the issue. Right. So what do you think the odds are that this guy does get traded? It's got to happen, one would think, in the next 72 hours, right? You've got to be able to take whatever you get and plug it right into a very deep draft, certainly at the wide receiver position.
Well, I think the odds overall are pretty small. I think the Browns want to give this another season and see what happens when you have a really good offensive system. Give those two, Beckham and Mayfield, more time together, and then see how that goes. You just don't want to really just give up on a guy like that so quickly. So I think the odds are small. But when the Browns say there's no way we're doing it, like, don't believe that. Teams always say that. Teams always say there's no way we're trading this guy, and then they trade him. So it's not necessarily what the Browns say, though I tend to believe them. It's more just they don't want to. They think this guy is really good, and they want to see what happens with one more season with them together and see how that goes. And if it's what I think it could be, then he won't go anywhere for a while. But if you see that lack of chemistry again, then it could be an issue. And I'll just say this real quick, Rich. One of the things that's happening now is we saw this a little bit 20, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, a little bit where teams were very hesitant to trade star receivers. They happened. I mean, Randy Moss got traded. You saw some of that. You saw Terrell Owens change teams. But teams were still hesitant to do it because of the evolving passing game, how important receivers were. And now there's so many good receivers, they're not as afraid anymore. They're willing to get rid of. I mean, Houston's a little bit of a different situation because that situation is crazy. But still, you will see that there are still teams. There are teams that are saying, "I'm not as married to this great receiver. I will take a chance with another receiver in the draft or free agency." And it's been like that, and it's changing. The receivers are still obviously huge because the passing game is so big in the NFL, but they're not as afraid to make a move with a very talented wideout as they once were.
Well, I think maybe that is because wideouts maybe start to be viewed as running backs, not in the fact that, that once you're past the age of 30, you've outlived your usefulness. Although, because there are some, we've seen Emmanuel Sanders make a nice signing, even coming back from a blown out Achilles at the age of 30,
Yep.
continuing to do what he's doing. But we're seeing guys come out of college and just get things done and get them done fast. And this year's group
Right.
is really deep. Mike Freeman here on the Rich Eisen Show. Running backs, we've seen what running backs can be coming out of college, and that makes running backs, even in their second contracts, somewhat fungible and replaceable. So what's the scoop with Leonard Fournette here in Jacksonville? Clearly, I think that this is the whole concept of him saying, let's go get Cam publicly is just the tip of the iceberg for this team and Fournette. What do you have for me on this front, Mike?
That situation, Rich, has always been a little bit tenuous because Fournette, you point out a good example of him, let's go get Cam. That's not optimal for a team. They don't want you saying, let's go get this guy when they decided we're going to go with another guy. Fournette speaks his mind. And there's something bigger, though. The Jaguars are rebuilding. They're completely restructuring that team. And we just talked about the receivers. There's still a belief that the running backs are not a key part of this game, and not as much. That you can, just going back to what you said, which is dead on, how receivers can be used as running backs. You can just throw a quick pass out to them, dump it off to them, and they can be devastating, far more devastating than some running backs. That's not in every case, obviously. There's great running backs that can do a lot. Christian McCaffrey can do a lot. But the receivers can function in that role. The tight ends can function a lot in that role. So teams just still look at backs, and I think the Jaguars are this way and say, we can find someone that we like more, that's maybe cheaper, that we believe in and we're cool with, and we're going to focus on the receivers and the quarterbacks, and backs are replaceable. That's what's happening in Jacksonville, I think. That's what's happening all over the league.
Sure. I just think for some reason, I don't know what it is, but Coughlin's gone now. But I just think that both sides are kind of sick of each other. I don't know. You kind of get that.
Yes.
You kind of get that sense with Fournette,
1,000%.
right?
Yeah, 1,000%. And there's a couple players in Jacksonville who have and the team, they're sick of each other. There's other players on that roster. And the thing about it is I'm a huge Jaguars guy. I love that organization. I like that owner a lot. I like the way it's run. So I think what they're doing is it's risky because you're basically starting over. But I like what they do overall as an organization. I love that city. I love that area. And so they're deciding we're just going to move on from these guys who may not want to be here, and we'll go and we'll build our own franchise the way we want to build it. And if you don't want to be here, if you're tired of being here, well, goodbye. See you later. And I think where they're headed.
So you think Ngakoue is one of those? Obviously, he's one of those guys. Do you think he will be heading out? I mean, because that's something that bears in mind before we see the draft play out this weekend, right?
He is definitely one of those guys I want to. I mean, he's basically said it. So not basically. So I think you're going to see, Rich. I think there's a couple of these situations to really watch. He's one of them. Some of the situations with the Jaguars, maybe Beckham, but I doubt it. And a couple other guys, a couple other situations where you could see trades and moves. It's always this way with the draft, but it's really sort of shaping up that way this year. And I would just really watch the Patriots. I know we say this every year. Patriots we always say they're going to make some kind of big move. I just have been speaking to people around the league who find it hard to believe the Patriots are going to go into this year with those two quarterbacks. No offense. No offense. But they just find it hard to believe that that's what they're going to do, and they're not thinking like 5 years down the road. They think the Patriots are going to make some kind of big move at quarterback. So watch them. And I can't find anyone who thinks the Bengals are not going to get Burrow, that no matter what they're offered, they're sticking with him. They think he's the kind of guy that can energize that entire city. So unless someone does like a Mike Ditka entire draft type deal, they're not budging either. So there are a couple things that are fixed. There are a couple things to really watch. And like always, as you know, this draft, something that we never planned on and unexpected will definitely happen.
Well, let's dive in a little bit on the Patriot thing, because that's so intriguing, obviously, because it involves the Patriots and Belichick and Brady and what happens in the next step and so on and so forth. You don't think Stidham has impressed in behind the scenes enough to have the Patriots just say we're all in with this kid? You don't think that's the case? Nobody believes it?
It might be. It might be. What I'm saying is people don't believe it. I mean, I have tremendous respect for Belichick. He's the best coach to ever do it. That organization is, to me, just my opinion, the best in the history of the league. You're going to see, though, what life is like without Tom Brady. I mean, he you talk about how a tide lifts all boats. I mean, he was a tsunami. And he bettered that organization in every way. They relied so much on him, obviously with the passing offense, obviously with the offense, but he impacted every corner of the organization. One guy. And so what I'm saying is teams are saying you're going to go from that to what you have now. Anyone who follows Brady would have a hard time, but this is a particularly really brutal transition. And no one believes the Patriots are going to do this. They just don't believe it. Now, the Patriots and Belichick, he's a very confident guy. He may say, yeah, we're good with this. And he may roll the dice. And that the odds are that's probably what will happen. It's just that no one believes it. Because how does a guy go from Brady to this and not really thinking more about adding more talent to the roster at that position and taking a chance with moving up with some of these players in the draft this year who are really good. So this is more of a question of they don't believe it, but Belichick is that kind of guy. Belichick is that guy who will say, I like him, he's impressed us, we're going to roll the dice. It's just that no one really believes it.
Mike Freeman of Bleacher Report here on the Rich Eisen Show. So, we keep talking Jameis and Cam, and for good reason, because in Jameis, you got the guy who threw for 5,000 yards, and he's got a big arm, and he seems to have turned his life around and has his head on straight and his LASIK done. And you've got Cam, who's a former first overall pick, who was entertaining and iconic in Carolina, as he said he would be. But I don't know why I'm just keep sitting here so much, Mike, and thinking, once Burrow gets drafted, Dalton's got to go somewhere. And that's when Dalton's going to start coming to this mix. And he might be the one that gets the gig in Jacksonville. Obviously, Jay Gruden's there, so on and so forth. I wonder what you think about that quarterback carousel going into the draft.
Totally agree with you on all that. I think Cam Newton has gotten one of the rawest deals that I've ever seen. A guy who was just physically just battered his whole career. The organization walks away from him. And there's this perception, and part of it is because of these times we're in now, that it's hard to just get a real hardcore physical on guys because it's just what we're facing. But there's fear of his health, his body breaking down. I think whoever gets him will get a massive steal. I don't feel as strongly about Jameis Winston. I feel that way very strongly about Cam Newton. I think he's got another really strong, really impressive chapter to write, and whoever gets him is going to get a huge bargain. But I think I agree with everything you said. I think teams are going to go with Andy Dalton first. And we talked about some of these things that could happen in a draft. This is one of those things that we'll see some type of deal in the draft. A team that doesn't necessarily, you mentioned the Jaguars, that's a possibility. There are other teams who don't get to draft the player they want, so they go for Dalton. And then after that are guys like Cam, and then after that is Jameis to me.
I agree with you, Cam. I mean, you want to talk about a chip on his shoulder and his foot? I mean, right? He's got the chip coming in, and he's got and he's still Cam Newton. You know what I mean? I know he's not going to plow people through, on third and short anymore unless he's back healthy. And I know he does have such a cannon arm that he airmails people. But there's just something about. I mean, he's still Cam Newton, and he'll put fannies in the seats. I'm just interested, but the Chargers have such a need for somebody like him. Maybe they're sitting back waiting if Tua drops to them and they come out with Tua, then Tua checks the box of the future is now. Come get your tickets. Everybody knows who Tua is. He's a delight, so on and so forth. Maybe that's what they're waiting for with the Chargers. What do you think?
Well, you hit on, I think, one of the big things with Cam. I think there's a good half dozen teams that have him on their radar and are looking to see what happens in the draft. And some of these dominoes will fall in the draft, and some of them may not until a little bit after. But I think he's one of the dominoes that could fall because I do think the way he has been at times portrayed and treated has always irritated me. But there are teams that know he still has a lot left. And there are teams that look at him and value him and think he's very, very good still. So it's just that some of them just aren't willing to make a move now because they want to really get a good look at him physically. And also they want to wait and see what happens with the quarterbacks in the draft. But eventually there's teams out there that are sort of waiting, watching him, monitoring him, and are going to make some moves maybe for a younger player in the draft. But he has a lot of interest. There's a lot of teams that really respect him and respect his game, respect him as a guy, respect his work ethic, all of that. So there's teams out there. I just wish he had been – I mean, look, this happens with – it's the NFL. It's a big boy league. It's brutal at times. The way guys are treated is brutal at times. I just wish he was treated a little bit better, more respectfully, because he deserves it. He's earned it. He's been a really good player in this league, a really good citizen in this league. And there's still, again, Rich, there's still a lot left there. He's still got some game left.
Last one for you, Mike Freeman. Your best guess by the end of Thursday night, who's got Herbert, who's got Tua, and who's got Love by the end of the night? And if you think there's a fifth one in the mix, maybe.
I think the Dolphins still get Tua. I think the Patriots have Herbert. And I'm still not sure where that third guy goes. I still like Love to New Orleans. They have a guy that could be a future QB, but Love is a perfect kind of Sean Payton guy. So I think there's not going to be a whole lot of shocks with the quarterbacks.
Well, I got to tell you, Herbert to the Patriots is a shocker. How do you connect those dots?
Maybe.
How does he wind up there?
Maybe. Okay.
You think he slips to 23, or Belichick actually makes a move, because he does have a ton of last day picks, and he does have a lot of late Friday third rounders. But other than that, there's not much capital to get up to where he might need to get to Herbert.
The odds of it are slim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it goes back to what we were saying before. I just, the people I really respect in this league find it hard to believe that he's going to go into the league, go into the season with what he's got, and think he's going to make, this is the year he makes a big move. So, but the odds of that, he just may not have enough to do it. He may have no interest in doing it. It's just kind of what people are saying. This is what they think, that this is the year he finally makes really a huge move. He probably won't. It's just not what he does in general. But if he was going to do it, this is the year. So I say that sort of knowing the odds of it are slim. But I've been really talking to a lot of people last like 5 or 6 days pretty intensively, and that's sort of one of the big standouts is they think the Patriots are going to make some kind of big move for a QB. But odds are it's going to go pretty straightforward. Like who you think was going to go where, right. That's what'll happen. I don't buy the Dolphins aren't interested in Tua.
Neither do I. I didn't get for that head fake at all. I didn't go for that head fake at all. But the Joe Judge is interviewing Herbert by Zoom. That one was like, what? That one just left me with a head scratch. What are the Giants just putting it out there? Hey, we're sitting there at 4. If you want Herbert, you might need to come to us. I mean, like, what was that about?
That felt fake. That felt like Jim Kirk in Star Trek doing like the Corbomite maneuver. Yeah. Google it. Okay, Google it. That felt fake. That felt like some kind of poker move. That's like 3D chess, but no one's falling for it. You know what I mean?
So the Corbomite, just for people to know, it is just a total fake. It's a fugazi, right? But the Kobayashi Maru is to game the system to cheat to get what you want. So maybe that's who's pulling the Kobayashi Maru in the draft. What do you got for me there?
Gettleman is trying to pull a Kobayashi Maru, but it's coming out to be a fake Corbomite. All right, everybody, Google those things. They will make sense.
Mike, live long and prosper, man. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Thanks, appreciate it.
Live long and prosper, brother. Talk to you later.
Right back at you. There you go. I just gave you this.
Everybody, throw it up.
Throw up the Spock. Very good. Talk to the Spock.
That's right.
Star Trek, right?
Do you own or rent your home? Of course you do, and it's hard work. It's definitely hard work, and if you need something to be made easy, that's where our friends at Geico are coming in handy. Bundling policies with Geico can be done right now, and Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. Give us a call. 454's out there. Those are listening on Channel 211, Sirius XM Radio, Dan Patrick Radio, NBC SN crew is going to be joining us soon, so get in while the getting's good on the phone front, 844-204-RICH. I'm wondering, let me just throw this out.
Still trying to recover from the Patriots getting Herbert.
Well, here's why I don't think this is going to happen. Okay? Because Belichick, as you know, thinks universally. He's not just in his cave. You know, he may not know who the Tiger King is. Okay, I understand that. Yeah, all right, he may not know that, but he doesn't live under a rock. And I'm wondering if he's sitting there thinking, and I'm wondering if other coaches might be thinking this, that the season may not go off on time, that the way things look right now, nobody knows for sure.
Yeah.
But the season may not go off on time. It may be truncated. One thing for sure is that whoever's drafted is not going to be in the building for a while. All right? That there's not going to be on the field OTAs. There's not going to be face-to-face schooling. And that may be a reason why Belichick wouldn't go with a raw rookie in 2020. That what you need for the rookie to be ready right now in the NFL, when you draft a rookie quarterback, there's two things there's two paths. One is the Bengals path, or maybe not really the Dolphins path or the Chargers path, because you can sit there and let them wait. You know, you want Tua to chill and you got Fitzmagic throwing it in windows he has no business throwing it into, fine. You're the Chargers. You get Herbert or Tua and you got Taylor sitting there. Let him go. And you could sell your tickets by saying, hey, you know, when we do get to play football again, come on out and see Tua, see Herbert. Bengals, that's it. It's Joe Burrow's team. We know it, right? So you got the team that drafts so high and they get the surefire prospect. There's no competition. It's him. Or you get the team that takes somebody and is able to sit him for a little bit because you got the veteran, and the kid can push the veteran out if the veteran goes, 2-5, right? But if you're a team like the Patriots, and we're sitting there thinking, well, Belichick's not going into the season with Brian Hoyer. Look what he looked like. Instead of him, he threw a pick six against the Jets. He performed so badly that Brady was pulled in that blowout victory, went back in,
right,
and they signed Cody Kessler 2 days later. And you didn't see Stidham was like Paulie from The Godfather. You won't see him no more. Oh, Paulie? You won't see him no more. So you didn't see him anymore. But a team that does have an opportunity for a rookie to start, and they may need him, they may not. They could be like the Chargers and the Dolphins, draft him high, hang him out, let him get up to speed, and in their air as your franchise guy eventually. But in order for you to have a rookie go ahead and start for the year, you need that guy to get into camp, wing it around, meet his teammates, get some sort of rapport going. And that's not going to happen right now. And I'm wondering if Belichick's like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to trade all the way up to get this guy for what? For when we come back in 2021? Again, I don't know if that has anything to play into it. This is total supposition. Just throwing that out there, Chris. Why would you trade they'd have to package together pretty much 98th all the way down to move up from 23 to the spot where Herbert might be available 5-6 overall.
Okay, so there's a report. John Lynch, we're going to talk to this week.
Tomorrow.
I think, right?
First guest on the NBC SN show.
They have 2 first-round picks, 49ers,
yes.
13 and 31.
Yes.
There's a report that they're looking to move out because they have no picks in the second or third round.
Okay.
You think Herbert's there at 13
I don't
for the
know.
Patriots?
Oh, look at Lynch. Look at Lynch's draft room. 3-5. That's a three.
That's a draft room.
Wait, hold on a second. That's a 3-room, seemingly. Pardon me. Hold on. That's a 6-screen, 3-phone.
One of those.
No, there's more than 6.
One of those screens is a computer.
Looks like, is that a Leroy Neiman version of the catch on the wall?
No way.
It's definitely, it looks like a Leroy. It looks like one.
That looks like Dwight Clark reaching for the ball. Is that a Leroy Neiman Dwight Clark catch painting on a wall?
That would be amazing if that is.
Damn.
Didn't notice the painting in the background.
Look at
7
Lynch.
screens,
Oh yeah,
Rich, you
I
missed
think
one.
it is.
Is that Leroy Neiman? Boy, by the way,
It looks like it.
there's no Leroy Neiman there.
I mean, what is going
There's
on?
not
By
even
the
a
way,
Leroy.
all these guys compared to Gettleman.
I mean, Gettleman's like,
Gettleman is like You've come home from college and your parents turned your room into like the storage.
Exactly.
And they took everything off. All your
done.
posters are off the walls.
Oh, man.
Yep, you're gone.
Like you're
out of
gone.
the
You're
house.
not coming back.
Yep, you're
Oh,
done.
man.
You don't
can
live
stay
here
this summer.
anymore. This is where you're just stay a night or two.
Yep, you get to stay
That's
there for
not
a good night.
Leroy. That's a Newman. That's a Newman painting on the wall.
I mean, that Lynch room is amazing.
Lynch is setting up. Bro.
That is
Lynch
fantastic.
looks good. You're right, Mike. There might be a screen off
There's
to
a
the
seventh.
side.
There's 7.
There's a seventh that we don't really
there's
see.
7
You mean
over,
the
yeah.
top right?
This is what I would have.
Oh, I would say bottom right.
Well,
That's
bottom
what I
right
would
is a
do.
screen. That's why I said that's 7 screens.
So 1, 2,
Seven.
3,
That's a
4,
seven
5, 6,
screen.
7. And
And
there
by
could
the
be
way,
another one top right.
Like you said, top right to the right of the Newman painting.
Neiman.
Oh, that might be another one?
That might be another one. That
Hold
might
on
be
a
8.
second.
No,
Just
that's a speaker, I think.
hold on a second. It's entire. Lynch is on the show tomorrow. We'll ask him. So
That's
honestly,
crazy.
take the computer, take the system. Clearly, that mouse, if you will, is to control all the other. All
Well, no,
those
that
monitors.
looks like a coach's clicker.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all that. All right. Take that.
Watch film.
Yep.
Take the 3 phones. Take the screens. Take the cost of everything. Put it all together. That painting might be double the cost.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If that's an original.
Really, oh, yeah.
That, by the way, that also might be a 1 of 1.
Wow. Oh, that's a power strip right there on the left. And nothing's plugged in
Where?
on the left.
Oh yeah, on the left.
Nothing's plugged into that. So that means more
That's
to
for the
come.
phone. That's for the phone.
For a cell phone?
Cell phone comes in. Plus, easy access. Boom.
Cell phone, iPad.
iPad, stuff like that.
Oh,
yeah.
by the way, that looks like that does look on the to the left. Looks like a corner of a
Another one, a
laptop.
laptop.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This is like a product placement. I mean, that's amazing set.
Yeah, but there's no.
That's
There's no. logos.
beautiful.
He might have double-digit screens in that room.
But there's no paperwork. There's no nothing. Oh, Boz, look
I
at this.
mean,
Look at
this
that.
is-
There's no
this is-
Purell. There's no Purell.
No.
There's no Aveeno.
Nope. He doesn't even.
Aveeno.
No, Purell.
John Lynch doesn't need the notebook when you have 10 screens in your house.
By the
mean,
way,
he
this
literally-
may be. We got to stop here. We got to do this on
This is
NBCSN too,
fantastic.
because this is some of my. This has been an unexpected bit of joy in my life. Is comparing and contrasting everything. Oh my gosh! Of all the draft setups, I can't get enough. Please, general managers, take a photograph of what you got and just send them to me.
I want to see everything.
By the way, my home office right now there's stuff everywhere.
How's the home cam? Nice. Already?
I guess we're ready. Yeah.
Yours looks cool.
huh?
You have like nice I like the NFL, the football.
Well, that's
with
the
light.
laptop setup. That's what I'll be doing the Draftathon live on a laptop, and doing it in that corner. And my other corner of my
so you have,
desk
like, multiple
is
studios.
where the it's
like the old Bristol
I've got different.
with
I've
the
got
different sets.
I've got different drop points in my office.
different sets.
I've got different sets. One corner of the desk is the Draftathon, and the other corner of the desk is what they're shooting directly for NFL Network.
Okay.
What's the Ian Rappaport news? Joe Douglas tells reporter he'll connect with Jamal Adams after the draft on contract talks. Well, he wants to keep Jamal here for a long time. Guess who I'm going to be able to talk to about that? I've been told Jamal Adams is our second hour guest of co-host on Draftathon
Really?
Live Thursday night.
Oh,
It'll me,
nice.
Dion, and him. Dion and him together on Combine Sunday was amazing for the corners. But there you go.
You going to sell him on
By the way,
staying?
that's what I look like right now, and that's what probably Kevin Hart looks like right
No,
now.
no.
Dion looks like Sanders Claus right now.
yeah.
He's got a whole Letterman beard going
Beard
on.
is so huge.
It's huge and gray and just really.
and
Honestly,
him wearing the
one
headphones.
of his career pick sixes may be caught in the beard right now, like soup.
It's massive.
Dion
It
does
is
not
massive.
look like that right now. Mm-mm. Not at all.
It's great.
But I
Cannot wait for Thursday. Cannot wait for Thursday.
See, that's what I'm telling you.
Oh, it's gonna be
weeks ago, when everyone's like, "Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Why is the NFL doing this? Why does it force them to do it?" Because of two things: one, we all need it, and two, the most adaptable organism in sports is an NFL team. Quarter to quarter, snap to snap, game to game, week to week, month to month, year to year. Right? Take a look at the setups the general managers have. John Lynch was the Niners were one of the first teams to not be able to go into their facilities.
Yeah.
So that was the Niners are one of the teams that had a competitive disadvantage to the teams that were sitting in their war rooms. Everybody's able to sit in their war rooms because there wasn't a shelter in place in their home city or home state. And now everybody's got to be sheltered in place. The NFL's like, look, if one team gets to use their war rooms, the other teams can't. That's not fair. Everybody go home. Look at Lynch's setup. What the hell of a setup.
He might have 10 screens.
That is the phones.
By the way, this is our clubhouse leader, right?
Oh, yeah,
setups?
this wins so far.
Oh, and by the way, the branding. It's impressive. Impressive
He's
branding.
got the...
Look at that.
Easy clubhouse leader. This is like Tiger in 97.
Oh, I
Look how
saw
clean it is.
So, Brock, when you are right, it said DV Sport on the one monitor. That is for plays. That's to go back and
Yeah, that's for the coach's clicker to watch
Coach's
film.
clicker to watch
I mean,
film.
you could dust for Prince there and not even find Garoppolo. That's how clean that is.
That's amazing.
It's impressive.
Are you saying Garoppolo's on the trading block? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that. You can pick up what you want right there. I don't
Tweet
know.
that out, all caps,
Yeah,
fire emojis.
tomorrow's show, it's going to go Lynch and then Chris Collinsworth and Billy Gardell's going to join us to tell us what the Yinzers need to do. By the way, you want to talk about beards, what Big Ben looks like right now? Oh, man.
What do you think Gardell's draft setup is going to be like?
I don't know.
He must be locked in.
So that's tomorrow. That's tomorrow, but we're going to do it live on NBCSN coming up at the top of the next hour. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk will join us. There's so much to discuss, obviously.
NBC.
SN. That's where we'll be. Jordan Palmer, quarterback consultant, QC, quality control. Quarterback consultant. He's been working with Joe Burrow and then Jordan Love as well, a bunch of wide receivers and running backs. And then B.J. Armstrong will join us to talk about the first 2 hours of The Last Dance on ESPN. And then your phone calls at 844-204-RICH and more. Don't go anywhere. We're back here on the Sirius XM station, channel 211, Dan Patrick Radio. For our YouTubers, stay put, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. But when we come back, we'll see you on NBCSN. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. Good to see you, gentlemen, right here.
Very much. Very much good to see you, too, Rich.
Yeah, right back at you.
Yeah.
Great to see everyone. Not just you, Rich.
I have a friend who, when he sees someone coming towards him, like in a room that he's supposed to know, he can tell I'm supposed to know this person, but I don't. He goes, there he is. There he is.
How are you as a ref, though?
I'm strictly what's called an AR, assistant referee. So I'm the guy who runs on the sideline with the flag.
I thought AR meant whole ref.
Well, that's what.
The shorts are pretty short, too.
Shorts are
I mean,
pretty
they're
short.
stocked in
Look at
length
that.
right there.
Look at that ample thigh.
That's a ham hock
Yeah,
right there.
look at that. That's ready for market.
So,
You might want to smoke that for a couple days.
You guys want a slice?
Put some hickory around it. You know what I would genuinely love for you as a second career, if you ever decided you wanted a second career? Finally be a broadcaster. Be someone who's calling color. Right?
Rich, maybe you could give me a break.
I mean, that would boost ratings for whatever sport you were talking
What if
about.
I took over the Rich Eisen show? Ron Burgundy did help announce the national curling finals in Ottawa, Canada. And they had all these ads for Tim Hortons Coffee, which is a big coffee chain for our Canadian listeners. And I just kept saying, all the signage, I'm like, who the hell is Tim Horton? Who does he think he is?
is there any possibility that we see a Step Brothers sequel?
We haven't never talked about this face-to-face in public.
No, we haven't.
So let's break some ground here. Are we going to do Step Brothers too?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen either. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Put up the Photoshop anyway.
You make sense in that world somehow, Rich.
This is The Rich Eisen Show.
This is one of my favorite shows.
Thank you.
Live from The Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles. The Rich Eisen Show.
He is Denver Bronco Von Miller. Now that you have COVID-19, you hear so much talk about when's the country going to open up.
I feel like we should take our time and really just, figure all this out.
Earlier on the show, Bleacher Report NFL columnist Mike Freeman. Still to come, host of NBCSN's Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio. Quarterback consultant Jordan Palmer. Plus, three-time NBA champion BJ Armstrong. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Okay, everybody, welcome to this edition of the Rich Eisen Show. We are live on NBCSN for the next couple of hours. We've already been on the air for an hour on Sirius XM Channel 211 and our YouTube stream, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, noon to 3 Eastern every single day. Call us however you consume us at 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rich Eisen Show for all of those spots. In other words, there's just no reason, no excuse to not see us, hear us on demand, live, however you wish. Good to see my guys at their posts as usual. Mike Del Tufo on the right of your screen, our audio executive, Chris Brockman on the left, resident New England sports fan and producer and good friend. Good to see you, Christopher.
Good to see you,
ready for a draft. We should be in Las Vegas, Nevada. We should be there right now, but obviously circumstances are going to have everybody sheltered at home for the draft. From me, I will be, if you're scoring at home, I will be on the right corner of my desk. I've got two shoot positions on my desk. I've got the right corner of my desk for Draftathon Live Thursday night at 7:30 Eastern Time. I will be sitting there on a laptop. Never thought I'd be hosting a draft on a laptop, but I will be doing so. And in the draft room, zooming with me at 7:30 Eastern and all night Thursday night is Deion Sanders. And then Kevin Hart's our first guest. I look like that right now, as you could see. Kevin Hart, I believe, looks like that right now. That's definitely not a real-time photograph of Deion Sanders, who has let his beard grow all the way in Letterman style. Very Sanders claws, very, very gray, very long. He could have one of his career pick sixes stuck in there. We need to look in there. But Deion will be with me all Thursday night. That'll be that. And then the night before, Wednesday night, I'm doing a mock draft show on NFL Network. I'll be on my left side of my desk for that one.
Okay.
Don't ask. It's just the way it is. It's just the way I just want to prove that as a television host, I'm ambidextrous.
You can go left.
I can go right. I go right. I can go left. I'm unguardable is basically what I'm saying.
You're a 90s MJ, essentially.
Well, I do have the heart of a champion, I believe. I do have the heart of a champion. You can't teach it. You either wake up with it or you don't. So, speaking of that, our last guest of the show today will be on the air to talk about The Last Dance that we saw last night, first two episodes on ESPN, about the final iteration of the Jordan Bulls. BJ Armstrong was on the first three-peat of the Jordan Bulls. BJ will be joining us to talk about his thoughts on what we saw last night and to get us ready for the NFL draft on Thursday night and throughout. Jordan Palmer, quarterback consultant, one of the guys he has been throwing with, or he was throwing with before COVID-19 hit. Joe Burrow, I think you've heard of him. I think he's going to have a very short night Thursday night.
I think so, too.
And Jordan Love, also he's been working with, as well as others. So he'll be joining us at the top of our final hour. And coming up in about 15 minutes is a guy who precedes us every day here on NBCSN. Although I don't know, has he practiced how to say NBCSN in the same way that I have?
NBC.
SN. We'll see. Mike Florio will be joining us in about 15 minutes' time. Pro Football Talk every day. And I'm on his the PM version, Pro Football Talk, PFT PM, which is his podcast. That'll be later on. So it's a home and home. He's doing this show in 15 minutes, and later on I head home, and I'll be zooming into his podcast, again, from desk right position in my home office.
You've multiple sides.
Which side has more cooler background?
Yeah, background.
Well, I think it's desk right.
Okay.
It's desk right. Although desk left, I have not been on yet. There'll be some rearranging going on.
Yeah, you got to finagle.
Well, I think I've got Mark McGuire gloves that he signed to me after I think he had career home run number 513 or 531 it was. Those are right behind me. I mean,
okay, those are good. Those are good.
John Lynch is going to be our first guest on NBCSN tomorrow. And look at this draft position for him. My desk does not look like that. But first of all, I don't have 3 phones. I also don't have what appears to be 7 screens. I also don't have on the wall what appears to be an original Leroy Neiman rendering of The Catch. My gosh. And plus, my desk is just not that clean. I mean, that is, my gosh. You can dust for prints and not find anything there. That's impressive. That is incredible.
CSI
and then
San Francisco.
I'm more Gettleman. Although I don't have. I mean, that binder can hit him in the face. I mean, look at the clips on that binder. And there's one. He has one thing that Lynch does not have.
Nope.
And that's Purell.
Nope.
Okay. Although that could have and Avino. There will be no chafe when he's on his hand on the mouse. He's got one laptop and a mouse.
The plug in the background.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, in his defense, turning 2,000 pages of a binder
that can
really change the hands.
Can really change the hands.
Yeah.
You need to be moisturized. A nice supple situation. Certainly if you're drafting 4th overall. And how about this? Ian Rappaport, my colleague from the NFL Media Group, and we'll talk to Mike Florio about this shortly. What's Joe Judge Zoom interviewing Justin Herbert for? What was that all about? I mean, there's smoke and there's a screen and then there's a smoke screen and then there's just like, what does that mean? Is that a way for the Giants to just let everybody know, hey, if you want Justin Herbert, come up to 4th overall because we're going to blow up the entire plan that blew up the Eli Manning era? What? I don't know what the hell that meant either. This is the time of year, man. This is the time of year. And you know what? It's going to be great Thursday night. The whole country's going to be sitting around and watching. And this weekend it is going to be something for us to all soak in. Okay? Because we got the draft Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then on Sunday will be episodes 3 and 4 of the Last Dance documentary that I watched last night, that I'm sure much of us watched last night. And I told everybody about this, and I'll repeat myself. It is just a fresh reminder for anybody who may need to know, anybody who may need to know, because college freshmen this year, I think, were born when Jordan was a Washington Wizard, finishing up his amazing career.
I think you're right.
All right, so everybody just needs a refresher or a reminder as to who the true GOAT is and was. The Last Dance should remind everybody just how great, yes, we can compare eras, and sometimes it makes no sense to do it. There's only one Michael Jordan, and there's only one GOAT when it comes to the National Basketball Association, and it's on your screen right there. We're in number 45, which was in the Last Dance era, Jordan Bulls. And the thing that is totally crazy to me now still, that's the thing that's blowing my mind also. This is a 23, 22-year-old story. That's how long it's been, a quarter century since all of this stuff was going down. And it just gave me a fresh reminder because I was sitting on the Sports Center set pretty much every night during the Last Dance Bulls. And it kind of reminded me of the feeling that I was having sitting on that set. Everyone, all the other Sports Center anchors, and you could see it in even Mark Jones, who was making his jump shot from his set in the afternoon show that they were putting on from the NBA. You can hear it in everybody's on-air reportage, the lead-ins, the comments. We were all at the time totally wondering what the Bulls' major malfunction was, that they were insistent on blowing this team up and not keeping it going for as long as it possibly could go, as long as Jordan wanted to play and be a Bull Phil Jackson should be the coach as long as Phil wanted a coach and Michael wanted him as his coach. For as long as that was happening, it needed to happen. And if Pippen wanted to get paid, pay him. Pay the man, as Dion screams on NFL Network all the time for good reason. Pay the man. And we were all wondering at the time, what is the malfunction of Jerry Kraus? And we are seeing this now in the first 2 episodes. He is clearly the antagonist in this story. Although, as I said at the top of our show, and I'll repeat it here for the NBCSN audience, Jerry Reinsdorf's the boss of the Chicago Bulls. He owns the team. Why didn't he, and maybe this will be revealed over the next 8 episodes, why didn't he step in and say, no, Jerry Kraus, this is not Phil's last year as coach, even though he was the one, I guess, who twisted Phil's arm to come back. But he's the owner. Signed Phil to more than a 1-year deal. And tell Michael, we'll pay you $36 million. We'll pay Pippen all this money. And the fact that Pippen was so underpaid for as long as he was underpaid, and that wasn't rectified to the point where he was a simmering, stewing, angered employee, number 2, I guess, behind Jordan. It's because Reinsdorf refused to revisit it. At one point, didn't Reinsdorf sit down and say, I told him not to sign it? Huh?
Yeah, with 7 years, $18 million.
But 5 years in, after you've got all these trophies in the case, maybe you want to revisit it. You can break your rule once for Scottie Pippen to keep Jordan happy and Phil happy and keep the whole gang together. How did it not happen? It's in this, and it also just, again, I know the NBA is an everyday thing and you're on the road all the time and you're on top of each other all the time. But the fact that the Jordan Bulls could not stay together, wasn't allowed to stay together, whatever happened with the front office and Kraus versus Jordan that went back to, as you saw last night, the minutes restriction that was placed on Jordan in his second year coming back from that broken foot. And he was so upset about all that. And if it wasn't for Paxson's shot at the end of regulation, at the end of the regular season, the Jordan 63-point game in Boston Garden wouldn't have happened, and the legend would have still been born eventually, but not in that manner. That he was taking that from year 2 and stewing all the way to the end about it. It ruined his relationship. Cross him once, I guess, you burn a bridge forever with Jordan. Put it all together, and it does make it even more remarkable, in my mind, that the supposed relationship that could not go on any longer between a GOAT and an all-time great coach that we've been talking about ad nauseum for the last year and a half, 2 years. You want to go back to the Garoppolo trade? Go back. Brady and Belichick lasted 20 years. 20 years. And Kraft stepped in, reportedly, when the Brady-Belichick relationship got to the point where one of them, reportedly, wanted to move on from the other. And Kraft, reportedly, stepped in and basically said, we're going to stick with our GOAT. Let's figure a way out to pay and get it going and keep it going. Why didn't Reinsdorf do that back in 1997, 98? And let Phil walk to Los Angeles and become another three-peat coach? Michael Jordan wore a Wizards uniform. I don't know if we'll say that with the same, I'll say that with the same disdain about Brady in a Buccaneer uniform. But it was 20 years. The whole thing, just watching it and reliving it, I couldn't believe it at the time, and I still, 22 years later, can't believe it. And one other thing that really struck me, Pippen. The way he talks and sounds, he makes Barry White sound like Mike Tyson.
He still has that great
voice. My gosh. Scottie Pippen sings Barry White's greatest hits would be something I would hear.
It's pretty good fantasy day.
Oh, my God. Excellent documentary. And B.J. Armstrong is going to be on the show to talk about it in our final hour here on the Rich Eisen Show on this Monday of Draft Week. Jordan Palmer But when we come back, Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk will be joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show. There's so much going on. Is Leonard Fournette on the move? What's going on with Tua and Herbert and Love? Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk when we come back on the Rich Eisen Show. We are back on the show.
Everyone talks about Pippen and how underpaid he was, right?
Oh, my God.
When it was all said and done, though, he did get paid afterward by Portland and Houston. So he ended up with nearly $110 million in career earnings. Michael Jordan, for his career,
yes,
$93 million, and 63 of that were his final 2 years in Chicago.
I'll tell you what.
I know NBA salaries have ballooned in the last decade.
I know that.
Years.
I know that.
But Michael Jordan might be the most criminally underpaid athlete of all time as a player.
As a player.
As a player.
But as...
Yes, he's now worth over $2 billion.
Well, I mean, because he did the right thing in terms of making his business deals with Nike.
But in terms of player salary...
And by the way, at McDonald's, I mean, if you take a look at the... if you Google the names, the first few names that show up on the credits, those are people from Jordan's Falk Nike world that are up there.
Nike, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, he had all of them. Gatorade, he had all of them.
I mean, he was the first athlete brand CEO, I mean, to that extent. And then, of course, Tiger followed the same playbook.
Took it to the next level, yeah.
You know? I just can't believe, and this is, didn't I tell you this when this was first starting out, that there will be people will still say LeBron is the best of all time? I mean, come on now.
Come on.
How the hell did they not keep this team together?
Ego.
How the hell did it happen?
Jerry Krause's ego.
Well, I know, but still, it's not. Jerry Krause didn't own the team. He did not own the team.
That's true.
The guy who put Jerry Krause in the place was a guy who bought the White Sox and said, okay, you want to run the Bulls? Go for it. And he did put a terrific team together.
I didn't realize Jerry Krause was a baseball scout. And then when Reinsdorf bought the Bulls, he went to him and was like, hey, can I be the GM?
And he's like, sure.
And he said, sure.
And he fires Rod Thorne.
Unbelievable.
They say Ron? Okay, Rod.
Yeah, Rod.
Yeah, I mean,
Rod.
It goes Kevin Lockery, Stan Albeck, then Doug Collins, and then after Doug Collins, in comes Phil, and the rest is history. All right, get Florio on the horn. Would you mind? We'll be back in a second right here in the Rich Eisen Show. Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. It's a delightful commercial break, especially since Michael Strahan confirmed for Wednesday's show during that commercial break.
Hey now.
Breaking news to you and the rest of the booking staff here.
All right. Love it.
So that'll be Wednesday's show. On tomorrow's show, John Lynch will be joining us first up. And we're wondering if it'll be from that beautiful, lovely layout that he tweeted out. Chris Collinsworth of NBC Sports, as well as Pro Football Focus, and Billy Gardell, the great actor, comedian, and diehard fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He'll be joining us tomorrow. Joining us right now, right here on the Rich Eisen Show, I'm pleased to have right here on NBCSN, because he precedes us every single day on PFT Live in the mornings. And then the PFT PM podcast I will be recording later on today. His other guests are two guys named Joe Burrow and Chase Young. Chris,
heard of them?
Mike Florio, where am I in the run of show with those two guys later on today?
Well, yeah, we're still working all that out. It's a very delicate process.
It is. I mean, I'm fragile, Mike. Just be very careful.
Aren't we all? We all are to a certain extent.
Deep down,
Rich,
yes.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Good to chat with you. Everybody okay in your world and your family and everybody else out there?
Everything's good. Everything's good. I have not left our property for 30 days now. And it's kind of like you get to a point where you want to see how high the streak will go. Like I'm 26 away from DiMaggio. So I really don't want to leave now, and I think the people who live in my town prefer that I not. So it's a good trade-off.
Well, look, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to jinx it. You know what I mean? Like let's just leave that one there and just keep doing what you're doing, Mike. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know. Yeah, you start thinking about it too much before you know it. You jump in your car and you just take off and drive down the hill just because it's gotten into your head. So there's a good chance that my car battery is dead by now, so I couldn't leave if I wanted to.
I got it. Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's get into it, sir. You've got Burrow on later. There's no question he's number one overall, unless you think somebody's going to do a YOLO Ditka trade, or you're hearing anything like that at all, or this is just a formality with Burrow.
Well, here's the thing. You never know when they're telling you the truth when they send out the smoke signals that they're not going to trade the pick or the Dolphins aren't going to trade up for the pick. I mean, if anybody trades up, it's going to be the Dolphins, right? The Dolphins have been doing their homework on Joe Burrow. The Bengals have done all their homework on Joe Burrow. And Brian Flores, the coach of the Dolphins, can say all he wants that they don't want to make the investment necessary to move up. And Chris Greer, the GM of the Dolphins, can say the same thing. And the Bengals can say, we're not going to trade this pick. We're using this pick. And then you make an offer to the Bengals that they can't refuse and that they recognize they shouldn't refuse. And frankly, all due respect to the Bengals, that's one of the wild cards here. Will they know when they've been given an offer that they can't and shouldn't refuse? But if Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, Rich, swoops in, and I've tried to think of the most delicate way to put this, but Ross is either 80 or close to it. You get the Leon Hess dynamic at some point where you say, look, in my lifetime, I want to have a franchise quarterback. And we have squandered draft picks time and again over the course of my ownership of the team. So what if we have to throw another pick or two onto the pile to get the Bengals to say yes to this? And if they're doing that behind the scenes, they're not going to tell us that. That's my point. It looks the same from our perspective, if it's happening or if it's not happening. So if anything happens with Joe Burrow, other than him going to the Bengals, it's going to be out of the blue at some point in the next 3 days. A trade is done, and it shocks us just like when the Falcons moved up to number one with the Chargers 19 years ago to get Mike Vick.
Well, I mean, I looked it up. Stephen Ross is 80 in about 3 weeks' time, and a great reference of the old Jets owner, Leon Hess, who, I just had flashbacks of Kotite and things like that that I need to just get through for the moment. But you make a very valid point, Mike, in that the Dolphins need to do it and do it now in many ways, but why wouldn't that still be Tua? What are you hearing right now? And you want to talk about smokes and screens? My gosh, you're either hearing Tua's fallen because nobody really believes his medical until they can actually put their hands on him, or they're just saying all that because they think he's as special as everybody thought he was the minute he looked off a safety against Georgia. What do you think about that, Mike?
One last thing about Burrow and Ross, because it dovetails with the Tua stuff.
Sure.
I caught wind very early on in the process that Ross absolutely loves and covets and wants Burrow, and I heard it in a way that passed through my BS filter, because when it comes to pre-draft rumors, your BS filter has to be extremely thick and very selective. When I started hearing, for example, Rich, that Tua is potentially going to slide out of the top 10, my first thought was, well, the team that's holding the 11th overall pick is putting this out there, because that happens. If you love a guy, you put bad stuff out there in the hopes that he slides down the draft and you can draft him. If you don't like a guy, you put out all sorts of good stuff so some sucker out there picks the guy that you don't want anyway, and it pushes someone that you do want farther down the board. But I started hearing from way too many people that Tua is going to slide out of the top 10. Now, all it takes is one team. But I've heard from too many people that he's going to slide because the doctors employed by the teams cannot put their hands on Tua, cannot personally observe him. And the teams are concerned, Rich, that the doctors who are accountable to us can't tell us everything's fine. We don't care if the doctor that has been treating Tua for the last 3 years says he's fine, because, of course, he's going to say he's fine. And there are different definitions of what is and what isn't fine. The doctor that's been treating Tua for the last 3 years could testify under oath and pass a polygraph test that he thinks or she thinks that Tua is fine. But the team doctors are the ones that ultimately have their ongoing ability to work for those teams riding on the accuracy of their assessments. And without that ability to check out that hip, without that ability to check out whatever else on him may not be 100%, it's going to be hard for someone to pull the trigger. And I'll repeat what a GM told me back when Tua got hurt. 3 years in college football, 3 lower body injuries, and you're talking about a much greater degree of physicality and roughness, and you have to assume that trend is going to continue when he gets to the NFL. And for a guy who's fairly mobile, that's not a good sign. So I feel bad for him that he can't get properly checked out ahead of time, but those are the circumstances, and I think it could result in him sliding out of the top 10.
And then there's Justin Herbert then that would move up maybe just because of that, or the rumors that the Dolphins like him or other teams do like him is actually valid. What did you make of the report that the Giants' Joe Judge had a chat with Herbert? What the hell is that all about?
Well, it's simple, and we've seen this happen before. We've seen it happen with great quarterbacks in the top 5 when there's a possibility for a trade. Even if the team that's holding the pick doesn't want him, the more you know about that guy, because if somebody trades up with the Giants at number 4, they're not trading up just so they can brag, hey, we picked up the 4th pick in the draft. Now who the hell do we take? They're coming up to get somebody, and they're most likely coming up to get Justin Herbert before the Dolphins can get him. So if it's the Chargers at 6 or the Panthers at 7 who are going to be negotiating with the Giants, the more the Giants know about Herbert, the better suited they're going to be, Rich, to negotiate in a meaningful way, because you are trading that player to the Chargers or the Panthers. You're not trading that pick. So you want to be able to say, oh, hey, we've studied the film and we've talked to him, and no, we think he's worth more, and here's why. Ultimately, it could be the Dolphins who do a flip-flop, 4 and 5, just to keep the Panthers or the Chargers from taking that 4th spot. But I think that's why the Giants are doing what they're doing. They've got their guy in Daniel Jones. They're not going to supplant him with a top 5 pick at quarterback 1 year later. They want to be ready, though, in the event that these negotiations happen for somebody who wants to jump up and get Justin Herbert. And you know what? The Giants may not get the chance, because maybe the Lions will be the team that slides down for one of these teams that would like to go get Herbert.
I love it. So it gives them the ammunition to ask for more if they know just how good the kid is. That's what you're saying.
As a result of their research, they say, boy, we wish we didn't know these things. Hopefully they are gleaning the good things from Justin Herbert. And there's a lot of good from Justin Herbert. I remember at one point, and you always hear during college football season, Rich, this guy's going to be the first overall pick, that guy's going to be the first overall pick.
Sure.
But there was buzz that if Herbert had come out after the 2018 college season, he would have been in the running for the number 1 overall pick last year.
Yeah, and that the Giants were disappointed that he decided to stay in Oregon and that they were sitting there 2nd overall. They might not have taken Saquon Barkley if Herbert was in right then and there. I heard the same thing. That was real, right? A couple of years ago?
Look, who knows? But there was a time, just like there was a time where Tua was regarded as the number 1 overall pick for this year, there was a time where Herbert's name had bubbled up, and that's happened time and again. Who would have ever dreamed that Joe Burrow was going to be the number 1 overall pick a year ago?
Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk on NBC, SN every single day preceding us and Mike Tirico's show, and then, of course, obviously podcast form, and then at Pro Football Talk on Twitter, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Odell Beckham and Leonard Fournette both rumored to be on the block. What's the smoke screen or realness of all that in your mind?
Well, it's definitely real with Leonard Fournette. And the Jaguars have come to the conclusion that from a culture standpoint, they're trying to move on with guys who are going to fit better with what they're trying to do. And I also think at a certain level, Rich, you're going to see under Jay Gruden, the new offensive coordinator there, an offense that maybe doesn't incorporate the downhill running style of Leonard Fournette. It's going to be more of a wide-open passing game with Gardner Minshew. But now they need to find somebody who will take him for 1 year, $4.1 million, with the ability to pick up an option for 2021, which would be $8.48 million, for a guy that had 1,674 yards from scrimmage last year. And there's so many people out there, when they hear Leonard Fournette, they initially make a face. It's like, he had 1,674 yards from scrimmage last year for a team that had a work-in-progress passing game from Nick Foles to a rookie 6th-rounder, and then back to Foles, and then back to the rookie, and through it all, Fournette had his best season in football really since his freshman year at LSU, where we all were like, hey, Leonard Fournette may be the first overall pick in the draft at some point. So the guy's got skills. The guy's got talent. Now, Ian Rappaport reported earlier today that the Jaguars are having a hard time finding any interest in the guy. And, who knows? Maybe at some point the Jaguars are going to have to pay a little bit of his salary to get him off the roster. Or maybe they're just going to have to take a 6th or a 7th round pick. But they want to avoid that $4.1 million, and they want to move on. It's just going to be hard for them to get value, apparently. But I don't know. The Steelers are the kind of team where if it came out the Steelers traded for Leonard Fournette, we would say, like I said when they got Minka Fitzpatrick last year during the season, damn, I wish I would have thought of that ahead of time, because it makes sense. I mean, doesn't it make sense to see Leonard Fournette in black and gold doing the Jerome Bettis thing and just pounding between the tackles and giving Ben Roethlisberger the help that he doesn't have now that Le'Veon Bell's gone?
No doubt about it. No question. And James Conner there, too, in the role that he was in with Bell, right? Just put Fournette in the Bell cow role, right, and let Connor get in there in a way that he has not been able to stay healthy. That makes such sense to the point where why in the hell would it happen, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. And I suggested yesterday the Chiefs should be at the front of the line, and
right.
And a lot of Chiefs fans went crazy. It's like their leading rusher last year was Damian Williams with 498 yards. He got 90 of those yards on one play against the Vikings. You take that play away, he had 408 yards. For a team that has such a great passing offense, that the running lane should be wide open for a running back. They spent $3 million on LaShawn McCoy. He didn't have 500 rushing yards last year. So if you're going to spend $3 million on LaShawn, $4.1 million on Fournette, and you put him with the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, they grew up in the same neighborhood in New Orleans. If Leonard Fournette's a pain in the butt in Jacksonville, he's going to be the opposite of it if he's got Tyrann Mathieu's influence all the time. And just think about that Chiefs offense. If you put a high-end tailback in there, a guy who's capable of doing what Fournette did last year, you may just want to hand him the trophy and not even bother with the season.
Right. I guess we do need to see. It makes total sense. I mean, we do need to see what happens in the draft. All the mocks that I see have DeAndre Swift potentially falling to the Chiefs at 32, and then there's of course all the trades that might happen with people. 32 is usually that spot where somebody trades back in for a 5th year of control of somebody like, say, Lamar Jackson or Teddy Bridgewater, like we've seen in previous drafts. Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen show. What about Odell? We didn't hit that. Is that you said Fournette was real? Does that mean Odell is not in terms?
Well, we don't know, because again,
right.
like we talked about earlier, they're never going to come out and tell us the truth if it is the truth, because the last thing the Browns need is to have Odell Beckham Jr. thinking that they were or are considering moving him. And when the report came out last week from Mark Malusis at WFAN, that struck me as, it's one of those weird curveball reports, Rich, where you're like, well, where the hell did this come from? This person doesn't break news. To me, I find that as being more credible, because that guy's got one swing of yak, right? If I screw something up, if Mort screws something up, if Shefty screws something up, if anybody who does it for a living screws something up, you're right back on the horse the next day. And you're going to be reporting something accurate that inevitably will make people forget about the one you screwed up. But if you're just going to swing the bat one time, you better hit the ball. So I think, and based on some of the stuff I did to try to put meat on the bone, I tend to think that maybe there was something there that didn't go anywhere, and now the Browns are trying their damnedest to just get the toothpaste back in the tube, because the last thing they want is Odell Beckham Jr. to feel like his team doesn't love him the way that it should, and that his team was considering trading him, and maybe Odell's going to be the one who starts saying, hey, I'd like to be traded to this team or that team. I mean, he's definitely wanted to play for the Patriots in the past. Now, Tom Brady's not there, so he may not feel that way, but I think that if there was anything with the talk, it's not a surprise at all that they will shout from the rooftops now that it's over and that it's apparently done, that there was never anything to it, because they have to deal with Odell going forward.
A few more minutes left with Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, ProFootballTalk.com, PFTPM podcast that I'll be appearing later on. So I guess it'll be PFTPM podcast with Rich Eisen, Joe Burrow, and Chase Young later on. That you can take that all in. You can promote it however you wish, Mike. When it all comes down to it.
The big 36 font, Rich Eisen,
Thank you.
And then we'll use 9 point for Burrow and 8 point for Young.
That's respectful, and I appreciate that. So the trade up, trade down, 72 hours before the draft. most likely to trade up, most likely to trade down would be fill in the blank.
Seattle most likely to trade down because they always do. Right? They always do.
That's right.
It's like every year that John Schneider's been the GM, they've found a way to trade down. Trade up, I really don't know. I mean, there's been talk, and Peter King's got a great mock draft in Football Morning in America where the Chiefs maybe trade up to get Henry Ruggs, the receiver from Alabama. The Patriots maybe trade up to get Tua. If and when he slides out of the top 10, maybe the Patriots are the ones that are putting out the rumors that he's going to slide out of the top 10 so they can go up and get their new quarterback. But to trade up, the Falcons have done it before. And here's the thing. The Falcons have done it before when they were rumored to be trying to do it. So whenever there's a rumor that the Falcons are thinking about trading up, I take it seriously because for whatever reason, Thomas Dimitroff strategically has no problem with getting the word out that he's looking to trade up because maybe that's the way to eventually find someone who will say yes when you've made sure everybody knows that you're thinking about trading up. So I think Peter said that they're looking to trade up to get a corner. So I guess if I had to pick one, I'd say the Falcons because they wouldn't try to hide it. They just go ahead and make sure everybody is aware of it.
And then just touching on the Patriots, I mean, shoot, we can spend between now and forever trying to read tea leaves with Bill Belichick. The sense that he will not go into 2020 with his quarterback room as currently constituted seems to be a prevalent one. Where do you stand on this, Mike Florio?
Well, when I hear Devin McCourty and Stephon Gilmore and Matthew Slater, who's currently now the longest tenured Patriot since Stephen Gostkowski's not coming back, they all praise Jarrett Stidham, what he did at practice, what he did to help make that defense as good as it was last year, challenging them every single day. It's hard for me not to think that there's a sufficient level of comfort within the organization that Stidham can be the guy. 20 years almost after Tom Brady got the reins as a second-year guy, Stidham may be the guy who gets the reins. Now, look, it all may be part of an elaborate effort to keep us all confused as to what they're thinking about doing during the draft, and I would expect them to draft a quarterback at some point during this process, but the idea of trading up to get Tua or making a big swing in round one at a guy who would instantly become the starter, I have a hard time processing it and accepting it, but, that just shows the genius of Bill Belichick because you never know what the guy's going to do. And I think he likes it that way.
Okay. And then the final, I guess, quarterback piece, unless there's another. Do you think there's a fifth after Jordan Love? And let's take it starting first, what Jordan Love, where he may wind up and who might be that fifth quarterback sneaking in.
Yeah, look, I don't know that we're going to get 5 or even 4 in the first round. A lot of people, and again, who knows who's putting it out there and who knows who's trying to get Jordan Love to slide. But when you mentioned earlier, Rich, the possibility of someone trading back into 32, and as you remember perfectly, the Teddy Bridgewater move, the Lamar Jackson move, maybe that's the Jordan Love spot, right? He makes it all the way through round one, and then there it is at number 32. Somebody calls the Chiefs and says, "All right, we've got an offer for you, and we're going to grab Jordan Love, and we're going to control him for the next 5 years." So, to me, that's a very intriguing spot.
Okay, Mike, appreciate the time. Thanks for the call. I will chat with you later today. I will be zooming in for those scoring at home from the right side of my desk. And then, I have, just so you know, I've got books behind me. Haven't read a single one of them in a very long time, but it makes me look like I'm well read. And that's the way I roll. As you know, all of our colleagues have been rolling that way from their
Hey, one of the
offices.
things about this pandemic that has been fascinating, any cable news channel, any sports channel, you get to see those backgrounds and you get to try to psychoanalyze the person based upon everything that's behind them.
Yes.
And it's been like an unexpected, I never thought I'd have this access into someone's home before and see their choices. But I'll be ready to scrutinize your choices.
Yes, I'll have a photograph of me with my kids behind me because I want to give off the impression I'm Father of the Year. And then all these books that I haven't read to make it seem like I'm well read. I'm just putting it all out there. But that's where I'll be zooming with you later on. I look forward to it.
Well, you will see me with a guitar behind me that I can't play.
Is that right? What guitar is that? What is that?
I've got some guitars hanging on the wall. I do these down in my barn, and the guitars are there for the ambiance. At one point, I tried to play them, but then I realized it's either too late to develop the skills or I never had the skills in the first place, so they just hang there and look good. They give me street cred and make it look like I actually know what I'm doing. I know how to hang them on the wall. That's what I know how to do.
Are you scribbling on them to make it seem like that they're a world-famous rocker, to make it seem like you're connected in that way? You should do that.
Actually, and this is the God's honest truth, a friend of mine brought over an autographed guitar from Alabama whenever they had their final tour. So that's one of the 4. I was never a big Alabama fan, but there is a signed guitar hanging on the wall from Alabama.
There you go. Mike, we'll chat later on. I appreciate this call.
See you, Rich.
You got it. It's Mike Florio, at ProFootballTalk on Twitter. What did you get in my ear and say towards the end of that?
I mean, I didn't know Mike was a member of the tribe. I mean, Jewish goodbye, you two.
Goodbye. I know. You know, sometimes it's tough for me to say goodbye.
It happens.
I mean, sometimes it's tough. Well, in terms of saying hello, the mock draft that we heard from Jason Light a couple of weeks ago that was going to go down with general managers. We talked to Thomas Dimitroff last week as well, right? That went down during the conversation. Of course, somebody leaks to Adam Schefter during the mock draft that there were technical glitch with Cincinnati's first pick. Lots of exclamation points. I'm wondering if that's a copy and paste. Brutal.
3 exclamation points.
Oh, God.
Brutal.
Look.
We know who they're taking. What's the confusion?
I don't know who that person
is. Why is there a glitch?
Well, the glitch is the technology.
I guess.
And I will just say this one more time, and I don't know who that person is. It could be one of the people who called into the show with whom I think my relationship is great, and I think they're delightful people. But I'll tell this to everybody out there, because it's clearly somebody who is upset. In my mind, it appears that the draft is happening. The draft's happening. So if there's a glitch going on, let's work through it and make it work. Instead of just saying, what are we doing here? I have to set things up in my house. I'm out in my war room with 50 million cameras around me, and I push one button, and I see somebody's game film from their freshman year, and I push another button, and I see their MRI from their sophomore year, and I can make a better pick. I know that their jobs are on the line. I totally understand the pressure of all this. But this is going to happen. So let's all just understand there's going to be glitches. And it may, heaven forbid, happen during the draft. And if the draft has to stop because of it, then it will stop. And we'll talk about how this is unprecedented. But we're doing it because you aren't getting back in your draft room anytime soon to do it. And if the draft stops in the real draft, you know what we'll all say? We all have a fantasy draft where the guy's like, my internet connection's not working. It's not working. And they start screaming from the other room or on the phone, pause the draft, pause the draft. And you're the commissioner. That's me. And I'm like, which button do I got to hit? And it's a whole holy heck. But we stopped the fantasy draft.
Yeah.
And then I hit unpause and we go. So, again, if the motivation to leak to Adam Schefter that this is brutal and it's not going to work and it's going to be a mess, and the message is, why are we doing it still? Because I understand their own livelihoods are on the line. Just know this. There's so many other people in the world who are adjusting their world and their schedule for much more important stuff. Am I on a high horse? You tell me if I'm on a horse that's very high right now.
No, Diana,
but that's what I took from that.
Diana Rossini just tweeted basically the same thing. She's texting a lot of people saying bandwidth is the problem.
All right. Well, guess what? There's 72 hours to work on the bandwidth. I think the NFL can associate with some bandwidth. Anybody know some bandwidth? I know I'm not an IT guy either. 844-204-RICH, number to dial. We'll chat with you when we come back on the Rich Eisen Show. Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong. If you tell me I'm wrong, you could say, Chris.
No,
feel free.
No, I'm just. This is expected.
It's not gonna.
I think issues popping up and potential glitches. This is why you work it out when you have 4 days before the draft. This is why you
you
work
rehearse,
it out.
right?
Right. That's why you lift all those weights.
It's going to be a little bit of a cluster.
Of course,
it totally
and
is.
if they got
it has to be,
dude. If they have to hit pause in the draft,
hit pause.
It is what it is.
It's not like we all got somewhere to go.
Exactly.
The commissioner's next to his laundry room, apparently.
We're all going to be watching, no matter what.
Right.
It's going to be
it's
a lot.
the only thing in town.
I understand, but here's the thing: I don't want it to come across as. I know the pressure that's on all the general managers and scouts and everything to make this work. But when, if not now, when are we going to do it?
Exactly.
When are we going to? Because could you imagine if this thing's got to get thrown together, because all of a sudden we are playing? Then you got to do this. And now at least everybody knows who's on a roster.
Yep.
When Monday hits or Sunday hits, Saturday night hits, everybody's on a roster. The clarity is there. This thing's in the out bin. Now we got to worry about
training camps or whatever.
Right, and what that looks like in this world. And when all right. I don't know. I just saw that. I'm like, somebody's like texting Schefter, hey, this thing's a total foobar situation. Then let's work on it. That's why we're rehearsing it. We're rehearsing it to understand how this is all going to work. So the first time that you're doing it isn't when everything's live.
Exactly.
And then we're rehearsing it bandwidth. Let's get the bandwidth right.
Yeah, so here, more from Rossini. She asked a coach to describe the mock draft. Quote, you got the NFL main room that only main people in the organization can log into. Then you have 15 to 20 scouts and coaches on another meeting. And you have to find a way to do all of this. Call prospects after you pick them, sign off on trades. Lots of moving parts.
First of all, for Zoom and stuff, there's not a lot of bandwidth you're using at your house because you're using their server.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have a 50 to 100 megabyte server. It's fine.
When we come back, let's dive a little bit more into this, but let's try and not get into the total IT stuff because
you don't need a lot.
There is no IT in NBCSN. You know what I mean?
There is in Del
You can't
Pifo
spell.
and
You can't spell. Oh, nice. Well done. All right, we're back in a second. Back here live on the Rich Eisen Show, 844-204-RICH, number to dial. We'll take your calls in a second. Again, I just want to repeat, the mock draft, Jason Light told us about this 2 weeks ago on a Thursday, right? When he calls in and he's like, we're going to have a mock draft. I asked Thomas Dimitrov, you guys going to have a mock draft to go through all this? Yes. Well, it's going down right now, and apparently it's very glitchy. It's not working out. And this is why we rehearse. This is why every single network, every show rehearses.
The Academy Awards rehearses for 5 days before the show.
Do they really?
The Grammys do it the whole week too.
So I guess right now in this mock draft, Moonlight's winning Best Picture, or La La Land's winning Best Picture. Pardon me.
Nice.
Right now, Warren Beatty's reading the wrong draft choice in the mock draft. Right now, apparently, to use that analogy.
That is going to end up being a meme on Thursday, isn't it?
Which is what?
Just the dude holding up the card.
Yeah. Well, I hope not.
And it's going to have the wrong name on it.
I hope not.
I don't know.
So what is Diana Rossini of ESPN read off her tweet right now because apparently everybody's just getting, everyone's calling their contacts who are involved in this mock draft right now saying, what is happening right now? So what is it? Walk me through what this is right now.
So she's kind of running this down right now. She's saying bandwidth is the problem. Texting from a GM. There are communication issues because 32 of us GMs are on a conference call and we didn't hit mute. It sounds awful. After the start, it's running smoothly. Another head coach texted her. Then she said she asked the head coach to kind of explain what's going on.
Right.
There's the NFL main room that only people in the organization can log into. Then there's another call with 15 to 20 scouts and coaches, and they all have to find a way to communicate, call the prospects after you pick them, sign off on trades, lots of moving parts.
Now, the reason why teams call prospects before they pick them, by the way.
Right.
Remember how way back when, as in last year or a few years ago, for sure, when the league has stopped ESPN and NFL Network for showing the green room. Because you don't want to see who's on the phone. You see who's on the phone, somebody's tips the pick.
Yep. And
so we were discussing, well, why don't you just tell teams you can't call anybody? You can't call them. And the answer that came back, and this is the truth, is you call the person you're about to draft, not just to say, so Jerry Jones can say, welcome to Dallas Cowboys, and they could put it on cowboys.com.
Right. Which is cool.
I know, it's great, and we love the access, but it's legitimately, somebody described to me years ago, to make sure the player is okay, like alive.
Living and breathing.
Like, that's why they call the prospect to say, are you okay? Did you trip over anything today? Like, walk me through it. Like, to hear the player basically say, I'm coming, coach. Great. So I understand why they're going to have to. There's a ton of moving parts. I get it. And we've been having fun with the coaching setups and the general manager setups.
This is the first time.
But I guess it's going smoothly now? Is that what you said? It's one coach is saying it's going smoothly?
Yeah, once they all figured out how to hit mute. The communication aspect smoothed out.
People.
It happens all the time.
Exactly.
Happens all the time.
Exactly. We've been on conference calls.
No, and it's just like, excuse me.
Somebody's running around.
So are you
house?
saying, like, we're going through the mock draft, and John Lynch is on tomorrow? Is John Lynch's dog barking in the background? Is that what it is? Like, we can't hear about Tua's trade because Lynch's dog is barking and John didn't mute like we're supposed to.
Or somebody's fire alarm's beeping.
The picture fell off Gettleman's wall.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And with Lynch, you don't know what phone to mute.
Right.
He's got three
of
of
them.
Look at that.
Probably a cell phone.
Cell phone, you got to add the cell phone.
I don't know. What are we muting? I can't tell.
And what if you have a window open that's playing one random video and you're trying to scramble through? It's a disaster.
I mean,
this is all going to work out, people.
It'll be fine.
We're going to get through this. But somebody's just immediately just all screwed up right now. Let me text Adam Schefter.
It's like,
and by the way, it is absolutely, I don't want this to be seen in any way, shape, or form that Adam shouldn't be tweeting that stuff out. Of course, that's exactly what we're talking about right now, is how will this draft work? It is unlike any other, and one that we will never forget and hopefully never repeat. And so this is a story, for sure. But this is why the mock draft's being held today. And I understand that today, general managers and coaches would rather not be figuring out where's the mute. What's this? How do I speak to Coach A? How do I hook Coach A up with Scout C? How does Scout C get hooked up with Prospect Q? And I'm sure they would rather not be doing that. But guess what? There's not going to be a time in the next weeks or potentially months where it's going to be normal. It's got to be done. And if you want to get a season done on time, if heaven forbid, knock on wood if you're with me, it all works out, you got to get the draft done.
Yep.
So if the draft's got to get done, let's do it. And work the kinks out.
And rehearse.
You know,
they're doing it today.
When I chatted with RG1 the other day, by the way, from my right desk position.
Flex.
I love it.
When I spoke to Roger Goodell, when I spoke to the goods, I'm sorry, that's what Eric Stone Street calls Roger Goodell. But when I spoke to the commissioner the other day, he said he wants to keep everything on time. And he did say all teams were on board, owners were. This tweet to Schefter shows not everyone's on this train. It's brutal. This is terrible.
It's the first rehearsal that they're all together.
Let me ask you a question. The NFL, with all their partners, do you think they can locate the bandwidth problem and fix it? Do you think?
Yes.
Do you think all the ITs can get together and figure out a bandwidth problem in the next 72 hours?
Not like it's the biggest show every year, the Super Bowl, that more people watch than any other show.
The thing I would genuinely be concerned about it is, outside of getting the pick in, that does sound like a logistical phone, computer situation. And if you've got somebody at the very top of your decision-making who might not be very savvy in all this, trying to figure all this stuff out.
You're talking about Dave Gettleman?
No, I'm not talking about
just anyone in general.
No, I'm just anyone in general who's not.
Kidding.
Some people don't know how to work a computer,
Look,
Rich. There are people.
It's not people who don't know how to work a computer. It's
the Rolling Stones figured out Zoom the other day. I think these guys can get it.
I have told. You saw my IT guy here in Los Angeles. I'll say it out here. Bill Waters, one of the great, and here in Los Angeles, he came and helped with us here, right?
Redo my house.
He's amazing.
It's amazing.
I've told him his number one job is that whenever I'm away from the home, I never get the phone call from home of how does this work. That's it. Nothing. I think anybody who's in a relationship, okay? By a relationship, I mean with your spouse, with your parents, with your kids. Nothing is more in this world, that fantasy world that we're living in, the toy department that we're living in right now. I understand what's going on outside these walls, so please understand I'm saying where I'm coming from. Nothing can create an argument more where the red button. Do you see the red button? I don't see a red button. I see a green button. Where's the red button? It's there. Just look like, you know what I'm saying? Could you imagine that it's an NFL draft like that? So I understand where the
of course,
angst would come from. I get it.
And somebody is going to screw up on Thursday.
Oh, 100%.
I think that should be expected.
Exactly.
It's going to happen. And like you said, we'll hit pause, we'll figure it out, and then we'll start up again.
Did I say Tua? I meant Justin Herbert. Did you hear me? Can you?
Is this thing on? Oh, the mute was
Think about
Turn
this.
the machine's back on.
The Academy Awards gave out the wrong best. Think about it. That's like the biggest.
It happens.
It happens. Things are going to happen.
I don't mean to laugh, but I think this is going to get worked out.
It's going to be fine.
And if it doesn't, we'll hit the pause on a draft.
Exactly.
The draft is stopped. There is some sort of technical problem. It's not what the NFL wants to have done. But guess what? Where else are we all going? Everybody just stay tight, sit tight. Clock stopped. We'll figure it out. If that happens, it'll be talked about. It won't be something that the NFL wants, but you can still get through it.
Oh, Twitter's going to be great.
Oh, my gosh.
It's going to be.
Well, you know, it will be because the Draftathon Live with me and Dion will be on it. You understand? Thank you. There is an I in Rich and Eisen, but I am a team player. Jordan Palmer, who is the quarterback consultant of Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, and more, and BJ Armstrong in our final hour talking about The Last Dance. To myself, okay, in the few minutes that are here, let me write an Ed Hockley retirement letter and read it out on the air. We then post it on the Rich Eisen Show feed, exclusive. The number of people that retweeted it and said they thought it was real is alarming. It's the only way to put it. So, God bless him. You know how much we love SVP. Is Scott on the line now? Is Scott there?
Yeah.
You thought it was real.
Well, I mean, as you said, you are a guy that has a reputation. You work at the NFL Network. You got sources. And when it was brought up to me in our meeting, hey, did you see the letter Hockley wrote? And I thought, well, that's funny. And then later, as I'm trying to write this script, I'm not finding it anywhere on like Google searches or whatever. But I'm like, where'd y'all see that? And then the producer that had it's like, oh, it's on Eisen's feed. So I read your feed, and I'm like, there it is. I see the quotes that work, and I just slam it in there on the script and read it on television. Fake news. Fake news.
Hashtag, yes. Hashtag fake news.
I'm mortified. Apologies to Mr. Hockley.
I'm sorry. We did not.
No.
That was not our intent.
Yeah, we didn't know it was going to happen like that.
That's entirely on us for not vetting, and it's been an alarm bell that goes off to me that I'm not able to find this anywhere but there. But again, and this is where I'll turn it and point at you and blame you, Rich Eisen. When you're a source of information and you got stuff no one else got, you think, yeah, sure, he's got the Hockley retirement letter.
And it's, I guess, believable that he's got his own stationery with himself on it, where there's a watermark of him as a ref.
As believable as it is that he's going to go sort out the lactic acid with a stretching regimen.
Vigorous regimen. Vigorous regimen.
I beg your pardon. Yeah,
You're the best, man. You're the best. I'm sorry.
You're the worst. Don't spoof me like that.
This is The Rich Eisen Show.
This is one of my favorite shows.
Thank you.
Live from The Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles. The Rich Eisen Show.
He is Denver Bronco Von Miller. Now that you have COVID-19, you hear so much talk about when's the country going to open up.
I feel like we should take our time and really just, figure all this out.
Earlier on the show, Bleacher Report NFL columnist Mike Freeman, host of NBCSN's Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio. Coming up, quarterback consultant Jordan Palmer, plus three-time NBA champion BJ Armstrong. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Our final hour here of the Rich Eisen Show. We have reached draft week 2020. Again, the NFL draft coming up Thursday night, and it is going to be, again, unlike any other, one that we'll never forget and one that we hope will never be repeated. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial to have a conversation with us. We will take your phone calls in this hour, in which B.J. Armstrong will join us right in the middle of it, the three-time champion of the Chicago Bulls, the first three-peat. I guess the first dance, right? Would you call that, Chris? The first dance? Before
first dance.
He'll be talking about the last dance later on in this hour. And towards the end of last hour, as we were talking to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, whose show precedes this one, along with Mike Tirico's show, that actually does physically precede us here every single day on NBCSN, 1 to 3 Eastern Time is how you can catch us. That the mock draft went down today between all teams. I guess all the teams, all 32 teams got their principals together, coaches and general managers and scouts into the positions in which they will be in their homes on Thursday night to test everything out, communication and what have you. And as Adam Schefter tweeted out, somebody told him, the first glitch happened in the first overall selection. Brutal is what the person texted Adam Schefter. Diana Rossini saying that things began to start running smoothly, correct? I guess they're going through it all right now.
They're going through it right now.
So, that's Chris Brockman. That's Mike Del Tufo at their posts every single day here on the Rich Eisen Show. And as I guess this is a perfect way, since there was a glitch in the first overall selection, let's bring in the man who's been a quarterback consultant of Joe Burrow's and Jordan Palmer. Jordan, it looks like Tua is going to be the number one overall pick. I guess that might have been the glitch. What do you think?
Is that what it is? It's funny you're telling that story, and it sounds eerily similar to my first fantasy football draft years ago. When we were, internet was kind of a new thing.
Spotty.
Drafting remotely, and players like T.J. Hushmanzada were getting drafted high, and so. All these coaches never got a chance to play fantasy. Now they're seeing what the common folk deal with.
I mean, we were, in all seriousness, it does remind me of a fantasy draft, and obviously the NFL does not want it to resemble a fantasy draft, and it doesn't want it to have a moment like we're talking about in our fantasy drafts, but just like in our fantasy drafts, you can stop a clock. To fix some sort of technical glitch, should it happen, life could go on if this does happen on Thursday night, Jordan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's crazy, and you won't have greasy fingers from wings to blame or too many IPAs. Like typical fantasy football, draft guys can blame. But I think it's going to be fascinating. For me, I'm kind of outside looking in on this. This whole how the draft's going to go down and the effects that this will have on the draft in terms of their inability to get physicals. Some guys are going to go higher than they would have.
Yes.
Because things would have got. Some guys are going to go lower because they didn't get a chance to win over that team in a meeting. So just to watch how it's going to go down, and then the residual effects afterwards it's going to be fascinating.
Jordan Palmer here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so how did you get hooked up with Burrow? How does this go down? Did you know him for a long time, or did you start chatting with him during last year at LSU? What's your connection to Joe?
Well, I'd heard about him. I'm pretty connected through the Elite 11 with a lot of the high school kids coming out, and a lot of the guys who were playing on Sundays are guys that I saw when they were younger. But with that being said, I see a lot of guys. So Joe didn't necessarily stick out from that standpoint. But as he left and went to LSU, I just kind of followed that. I ran into Coach Orgeron, who was my older brother Carson's. He was the D-line coach at USC. I'm talking about way back.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I think the last time I saw Coach O I had zits and braces, and he sounded and looked exactly the same. So I think that was the last time I saw him. But no, in the green room, I was there with Sam Darnold and Josh Allen, and he said, "Hey," I made a joke. I said, "When are you going to have a quarterback in this green room?" And he said, 2 years. And so he kind of, I think Joe was just in the transfer portal coming over, whatever it was, and so he was on my radar. I watched 2018 LSU, so not this past season, the season before. And if you really actually watch it, and I watched it in real time. People are now going back and watching tape. If you watch it in real time and you listen to the announcers and you kind of knew what was happening at LSU, Joe was putting the ball on the money. The first half of the season, his stats were bad. The second half, they were good, and so they ended up being like at the end. But they led NCAA in dropped passes in 2018. And so there was more there than met the eye. And I know LSU fans were watching the games, but Scout, I don't think a lot of other people were. And so when I saw that, I go, man, I want to see this guy in person. So I invited him out to one of my QB Summit camps, which they're camps that I run, and young guys and high school guys come. But I always have a couple of college counselors, and it was funny because I had a couple lesser-known college quarterbacks, and they no one knew who the Burrow kid was, and so that was just in July. But when I had him out there, he was throwing with Sam Darnold and Josh Allen, some of these older guys that were out there, and we all kind of said the same thing. We said, man, this guy's a little different, a little more confident than everybody else, a little more mature. And when you hear him talk about his team, man, it sounds like they got a chance to go on a run. And when I learned more about it, I actually went on a couple different media pieces in July and said, look, there's a kid no one's talking about who's got a chance to go really high in the draft, win the Heisman, win the national championship. So I at least saw the writing on the wall that was potential. I didn't know he was going to do what he did, but there was enough key ingredients there where I think you could see it.
So what does he need to work on? Seems like he makes all the throws, Jordan. But what did you see and tweak, and what do you think he brings in terms of the skill set about working on as a professional?
Well, I get a chance to spend 3 straight months with these guys, which is the biggest time period from when they start playing football to the end of a 15-year career. The draft phase actually represents the greatest opportunity, in my opinion, to take a step because they don't have school, class, marketing things. Their friends aren't trying to get them to go out. They don't have teammates. They can just focus on themselves. So when I do at that time is I break down into 2 areas that we're going to focus on. One is what needs to be developed, which is a nice way of saying what needs to be fixed.
Yes.
And the second one is what just needs to be introduced. Like what have you just not done yet because they didn't ask you to do that you're going to. So part of that is coverages that they're going to see. Well, they don't run all the same coverages in the NFL they do in college. And with Joe, they were from week 4 on, they were basically in a 5-man protection every pass play, meaning they only had the 5 guys blocking. They had 5 guys out in a route. And Joe had a lot of protection responsibilities to be able to, to allocate for the rushers that were coming. And so the big part was just getting him caught up on 6-man protections and 7-man protections and play action, all the under center footwork. He was predominantly in gun. So a lot of the stuff I did with Joe was really just introducing him to what he's gonna see. We didn't really spend a lot of time getting him ready for the draft. I spent the majority of the time trying to get him ready to play his rookie year.
Okay. And then the issue of him being chosen first overall I spoke to your brother about this last week at the Super Bowl. That was a big conversation, man, about does he really want to be picked by the Bengals? And then we start tracing, your brother thinks that they didn't really want to win. TJ Hushmanzada, whose name you mentioned, I know that Joe's been throwing to him, or at least he was part of his training. How much does that play into what's going down Thursday night? Does Joe really is he all in if he gets chosen by the Bengals, Jordan?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's a guy who, from a confidence standpoint, feels like if he's on the team that they got a chance because they have him, and that totally may sound cocky, right, to a couple of the listeners, but that is the difference here between dudes who play in the league and the ones who hold trophies. Is that they genuinely believe because they have them, they're good enough to win. And so, and Joe's, I think he's looking at this and going, man, I think if I can step into a program, he took over a high school program, turned that around. He went to LSU and they did things they'd never done before. And so I feel like he's stepping into the league and feels like he can win with anybody. And I think if you look at the Bengals, if you look at any of these teams that were rumored to try and get to one, really any of the teams in the top, there's reasons to believe that if they have Joe, they can win, and there's also things to be concerned about. And so I think that's across the board. And then connecting the dots between my brother and I, look, that was a Marvin Lewis-ran team. That was different. Times have changed, some for the better, some for the worse. I don't even know. But when you change the regime, things change. And so I don't even know that my opinion even matters because it's from 9 years ago, And so I think Joe's looking at this going, all right, if he's blessed and they take him number one, he's looking around at a roster he thinks he can win with and a division he thinks he'll be competitive in, and I think he'd look at any situation that way.
Jordan Palmer, quarterback consultant, former quarterback in the league, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So you work with Jordan Love as well. There's been so much comparison between Love and Mahomes. Boy, that sounds unfair, but I'm wondering what you've seen from Love and his skill set that might be Mahomes-like. Jordan.
Yeah, I got a chance to spend some time with Jordan Love during this draft training as well. A lot less time than I spent with Burrow, but enough to fall in love with his traits for sure. I had spent a lot of time with Patrick during this phase too, and his last year at Texas Tech. And I think the similarities, it's certainly not fair. It's not like I've heard comparisons of Joe Burrow to like Joe Montana and these people that it's just like, how are you coming up with that comparison?
Brady's the one. Brady's the one that even Kevin Falk has mentioned, and obviously he won Super Bowls with Brady. So you're hearing Brady with Burrow and Mahomes with Love. It's flat out. That's what you're hearing.
I just compare people to I'll compare Jordan Love right now to when Patrick was at this phase. But I'm not just comparing, a rookie with a 21-year vet in Tom Brady, right?
Right.
So, but if I were to compare Patrick at this point and Jordan at this point, yeah, there is a lot of similarities. The similarities, the ability to throw from different arm angles, which to a casual fan probably doesn't mean a ton. But think about it like this. If you can throw from different arm angles and the result is consistent, then what that means is you're going to get more quality attempts. Like you got a better chance to complete more balls. Then if you have elite arm talent, which they both do, and then you add on there, they can both move around. And I think the future of the position is the quarterback's ability to create time and space. Sometimes that's a yard. Sometimes that's getting outside the pocket. So both of those guys, Patrick and Jordan Love, have the ability to throw from different arm angles consistently with elite arm talent and move. Okay. So there's the part where I would connect those two. The part that's different, and this is a giant difference, is the system that Patrick played in high school, the system that he played in at Tech, and the way I met Patrick Mahomes, Cliff Kingsbury said, hey, I got this thing. He's a sophomore. You got to get your hands on him, kind of thing. So I had never met the kid till he showed up. And so, but what they ran at Texas Tech, they didn't play a lot of defense. I mean, they had to score 40, 50, 60 points. He had to throw 4, 5, 6 touchdowns. So he just had Patrick had so many shootouts his whole life. He was just so much foot on the gas. And then when you don't play defense, you can't turn it over because if you lose a possession, that's like giving them 7 points. So he also had this balance at Texas Tech where he was aggressive but made good decisions. He didn't throw a lot of picks. The difference with Jordan Love is he didn't play in that prolific offense in high school. He didn't play in that prolific offense in college. Can he do all those things? I think he can do all the same things, but one of the unique traits that Patrick has that not many fans give credit to is the fact that he has been in so many shootouts. That's why when they're down, whatever they were down, they can come back and win because that's his mentality, and that's the difference that I see between those two.
All right, in a few minutes left to have with you, Jordan Palmer, I want to turn you, I guess, into a member of the paparazzi and an evaluator a few years in. Darnold, Mayfield, Trubisky, in terms of the consistency level or in terms of what we believe maybe is their future, which one is the closest to having already an opinion that we could form as to whether they're going to work out in this league so far? What do you got for me on that?
Yeah,
Jordan?
I think I would say on the unfortunate side of it, I would say it's Trubisky because when you give a guy a really good opportunity, which is a good defense, some good weapons, a quality play caller and head coach, which I think is what he's been given. What you can't then say is, well, I just wasn't ready for that opportunity yet. I needed to be in year 2 or needed a little bit more experience because this is a right place, right time league. And it's also a wrong place, wrong time league. there's been great players who just were at the wrong spot at the wrong time, and there's been pretty good, decent guys who were at the right place in the right time, and some of them have gold jackets. And so with Mitch, I would say I'm there. I think Nick Foles is going to come in and just kind of be that little mid piece. I don't know that he's a long-term solution, but he's going to be a great missing piece for them. And then between Baker and Sam, I would say that Baker has been given more quality opportunities just with the personnel around him. I think Sam, there's a huge discrepancy between the Browns and the Jets in terms of offensive personnel. Both of them have had multiple coordinators. Both of them have had ups and downs for different reasons. Sam because he got sick, and Baker with just some off-the-field stuff and distractions. So I think there's still we still got to see more out of those guys. Sam hasn't played a full 16 games yet. In the 2 years that he's played. And so that would be, as much as I love both those guys, that's why I'd say he's right there. But I do think that if you give Sam the weapons, I think that's going to end up, when it's all said and done, looking a lot better.
And your guy, Josh Allen, it's his division to win now, don't you think? Right?
Yeah, it's wide open. It's wide open. It's interesting because I work with Jarrett Stidham, too, who's taking over in New England. So that AFC East is filled with a bunch of guys who hang out here.
All right, so you just opened the door. I want to walk in. And how ready do you think Stidham is? Because it seems like Belichick might be ready to just hand the job to Stidham. We'll see what happens on Thursday and Friday nights. But what do you think of Stidham's readiness?
I think he's absolutely ready. He's been thrown in a lot of weird spots and handled himself well. He had a challenging childhood and had to become the man of the house at a young age. And so starting just with that right there, and then to go through Baylor with all the Art Briles, if you guys remember all that controversy and, stuff, stepping down, transferring, going to Auburn, getting thrown to a tough spot and, really, really playing well. And then last offseason, Jarrett was in as good a spot as you can be in for a young guy to learn. So last offseason, he's in the room with Tom Brady and Brian Hoyer. Between Tom Brady and Brian Hoyer, they had 31 years of NFL experience, 27 in that system. So he just got a year at MIT for football. And I know what he can do physically and from a confidence standpoint. So I think he's in a great spot. I also would say it'll be interesting to see what the Patriots do Thursday and Friday, because if they want to put competition in that room, you do it with another young guy. And so that could be interesting. But I think Jarrett is if you give him the ball and put him in there, I don't know that he's going to come out.
Jordan, appreciate the time and the insight, man. You've got tons of it. We'll give you a call later in the week for next and see how it all comes out. I'd love to get your 2 cents on all of it. Always appreciate the call and the time.
You're the best. Thanks, Rich.
Right back at you. That's Jordan Palmer. He's how about that, man? Do not sleep on Jarrett Stidham. Look, man, I don't know everybody's story, but I do believe in that stuff.
Yeah.
Became the man of the house at a young age.
Nobody knows.
Maybe now it's New England's house. We'll see. We will see. The Last Dance, episodes 1 and 2. B.J. Armstrong, who was part of the Bulls' first dance, the 3-time NBA champion, discussing that and your phone calls at 844-204-RICH when we come back. That was a great. I love chatting with Jordan, man. Sounds just like his brother.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Just like his brother.
That's the only real way, I think, without talking to the kid, is to talk to the people who work them out. They know.
Right.
They know how good he is. They know what he can't do. They know if given the right opportunity and the right system, what the future could be. That's why I like talking to Jordan and Trent. Like, these guys know.
Yeah, no, talking to them off the air is probably, but that clearly,
yes, true, off air.
Because he did mention that Burrow has some, things to work on or whatever. Right. But nobody's really going to work with a kid and then kill him on the air. But that's why you got to sort of pick and choose how you're evaluating that sort of thing, but getting an honest assessment of like Baker and Sam and.
But the info
but he said
and the access.
Trubisky is who he is what it seems like Jordan Palmer had to say. Hey, man.
False.
You got Khalil Mack sitting there, turning the ball over, giving you short fields. You got to turn it into points, don't you? You have to. And he knows Foles. Foles is a David Dunn client, who Carson is too. You got to sometimes know who's representing who's come across who. He met Coach O when he was Carson Palmer's defensive line coach. What he said when he had zits and braces and Coach O looked and sounded exactly the same. That's a funny line. That's a funny line. You know, and in advance of B.J. Armstrong, there were some great lines last night. I just, you know, if I didn't have a glass of wine in my hand, I would have written them down. I forget who it was. There was a member of the media who was covering Jordan back in the day. I think he said that you could make the case that Jordan is the best at his job of anybody at a job.
Ever done a job. Yeah.
He's the best at his job of anybody who's ever been at a job. In terms of people doing a job, he's the best at his job than anybody was at their job, essentially. The greatest employee of all time. Although, I mean, I'm sure he was very difficult.
Yes, difficult.
From management's point of view.
How about
yes,
80 Bob Costas?
Oh, Costas with the flow.
And the hair and the gold jacket.
The hair,
and the microphone that's just right
and
there.
And the microphone with I was dying.
WGN. That was awesome.
Or is it WGN?
That was one of the first channels we had on our cable company in New Jersey.
WGN is a superstation. TBS and WGN.
Oh, yeah.
We had WGN. I remember that.
I did not know Costas worked.
Me neither.
In Chicago.
1 year, 79 to 80. Unbelievable.
The flow.
I mean, that hair was like...
Someone said he looked like Mark Hamill.
Oh.
in the first Star Wars.
May the force be with you.
May the force be with him.
I mean...
All right, B.J. Armstrong when we come back. Don't go anywhere. So in our commercial breaks from NBCSN, we pop back on to chat with our YouTube followers and those who are in our chat room, which we've nicknamed the Wormhole, and the 454s is what they wanted to be labeled because that's my Uber rating, which will be changed one day. And I just mentioned in that chat during the commercial break that one of my favorite lines from last night's first two episodes of The Last Dance is a member of the media whose name escapes me, covering the Bulls at the time, said that Michael Jordan may have been the greatest at his job of anybody at their job in the history of jobs, essentially. And then one of the 454s chimes in, Del Tufo is the best at his job as anyone has ever been at his job.
Well, I don't like the film.
I don't know. I didn't know you named yourself a guy named Seth Finberg. I don't know. Did you pay him all to say that?
No.
I mean, oh
my
gosh.
People like me.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, Mike.
844-204-RICH is the number to dial. We'll take your calls later on in this hour, but I want to take the phone call of a good friend of the program and a good friend in general. He's a three-time NBA champion. He was part of the first three-peat of the Chicago Bulls, and every single Monday we plan on having a guest on from that era to talk about the two episodes of The Last Dance that will be airing the night before. And our first guest is B.J. Armstrong. How are you, B.J.?
Rich, I'm doing very well, and hope you are doing well, the family.
We are.
You guys are staying safe, and thanks again for having me on the show.
Of course, Susie wanted to send her best. My wife, who loves everybody loves B.J. Armstrong, so glad you have it on here. Did you learn anything new last night, B.J., watching the first two episodes?
Well, Rich, it's as I was sharing this with my wife last night, it's always weird. I've always felt uncomfortable watching myself on television, right? Like an old game will come on, and I'll just walk out of the room. This is really weird to watch because, you knew the stories, and to watch it and know what's coming up next, it's kind of weird to watch, right? It's kind of eerie a little bit, and but it was fun, right, to revisit because you're seeing the reaction of so many people who didn't know these stories, and especially the youth today. So it's been interesting to watch the reactions.
Well, obviously, again, you were not part of The Last Dance. As a matter of fact, I mean, by that I mean the final three-peat of the Bulls, but you were.
Mm-hmm.
We did catch you last night hugging Michael after a Warriors game because you were on the Warriors at the time. We did kind of spot you doing that last night. But I guess I will just start here with this question that a lot of people are going to have throughout the 10 episodes. Why did this team get broken up? Why, BJ?
Well, Rich, when you play sports, you play and you win. One of the things that I think you always have known, and what I learned very quickly when I came in this league, is, Rich, when it ends, it always ends bad. Always. And I learned that watching the Pistons. When the Pistons run ended, it ended bad. When the Lakers, living out here in L.A. now, when the Lakers run ended with Shaq and Kobe, it just ended bad. And, you can look now at the Patriots, with Brady. When it ends, it always ends bad. It's never a right time. It's never a wrong time, but you know it's going to end. So I think it was Pat Riley or someone, said it best, the ego, the me is going to end every run. And it's just a matter of when it's going to happen, not if it's going to happen. And that's just human. That's human behavior. And it's human behavior at its highest moment. And, watching the Bulls, I learned, on the job, that the greatest opponent that I faced in sports was success and failure. How are you going to deal with it? And what you're seeing here, in the first two episodes anyways, you see, how challenging it is to not do it just individually, but collectively as a group so that you can continue to get to the end result, right? And the end result in sports is winning and ultimately winning the championship. So, that's just the way it is. That's a part of the game. That's why, I found it challenging is how could you get these other 11 people and get us all on the same page where something was going to unite us and find us a way to live outside of ourselves, right?
Well, it seemed, BJ, from what of course, and it seemed to me last night, seeing how Jordan chafed at a minutes restriction in his second year, chafed coming off the floor with seconds to go because he had hit his minutes restriction, that was something that soured him on Bulls management, and it never changed. Did you see that when you first arrived in Chicago?
Well, Rich, that was one of the eye-opening experiences that I experienced. If I can just share that. When I came into the league, I was this happy-go-lucky kid, right? I was living out my dream. But what I quickly found out that it was a job, and more importantly, it was a business. And I struggled with that when I first came in the NBA because I was like, well, someone forgot to tell me that this was a business, right? If I didn't make this shot here, they were going to find someone and get someone who could make that shot. It was, it just is what it is. And I think Michael's understanding of the business, he saw it firsthand. And I think that had a great impression. And every player that plays professional sports, they come up, they're faced with that because we think of sports, we have such fond memories of sports and competition and winning and sportsmanship and all of those things. And you suddenly find out that professional sports is a business, and it's a business through and through. You can't deny it, and you got to figure out how to deal with it. And my way to deal with this was I made a commitment. I can remember when I was a young player, like in my first or second year, I said, look, I'm here. I got a job to do, but I'm not gonna allow anyone in the organization or anyone in this league steal my joy because I wanted to always remember what it felt like and what I dreamed about doing, which was playing in the NBA someday. So that was tough to watch because every player goes through that, and you saw Michael go through it and look at face to face, and I just think that was his moment to understand of what he was really into, right? He was a basketball player, but he also understood the business to such a degree that I think allowed him to achieve success beyond anyone's wildest imagination because at the time, no one wasn't building teams around a 6'6" guard, and that was a challenge in and of itself.
Well, in terms of the animus towards management, we're seeing in the last dance as it was playing out that they didn't hide it. They would just bark at Jerry Kraus or make fun of him, or in the case of Pippen, barking at him, or Jordan just openly mocking him. What was that the case when you got there? Did you learn that Jerry Kraus was not to be liked, or did you have your own relationship with him? What was that like?
Well, it's the one thing is, sports is very interesting because you you're playing this game and you're playing the game and it's heightened emotions. So, I saw it. I saw the back and forth. I saw all of those things. But again, I had to be incredibly professional and never get caught up into anything that was going to allow me not to do my job. Yes, did that happen? I think you saw a little bit of it with last night with Scotty, Michael, and those guys. And that was a part of the culture that we had there. But the key thing is that as a group, as a team, we never allowed what was going on off the court to affect what was going on the court. There wasn't anything that was said about not to like this guy or to like this guy. Everyone understood that at any moment, let's just be very transparent here. At any moment, anyone could have gotten traded. People could have got moved, what have you. If we don't win that series against the Pistons, maybe the whole team is revamped. Who knows? But the key is that that's part of it, right? And I learned on the job that I had to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So playing in chaos, playing with all these things swirling around, that was everyday normal occurrence for me. I learned how to deal with it, and I learned how to perform whatever was going on and just block it out. So I had the attitude, Rich, whatever. That was my word. Whatever. Whatever was going on in the bus, whatever. Because you know what? Hey, if Michael passed me the ball, I had to make the shot, and there were no excuses.
BJ Armstrong here on the Rich Eisen Show. And obviously, we want to talk about business. All business, Michael, was that. And it may stick out like a sore thumb here in 2020, where I guess there's a lot more kumbaya in some parts of the world. What was your first impression of Michael, and when did you learn, boy, you better come buttoned up, prepared, bring your A game all the time, BJ?
Well, he just, I quickly saw him, really transcend something that I have never seen before. Most players, I've seen players, tap into a zone, right? You have a good game, you may have a good week, you might have a good month. But this guy had a great day every single day. And not only in the games, but he was great in practice. And now I knew that I had to find a way to play and perform at his level in spite of myself not having a great game. And he demanded that of you physically, mentally, emotionally, every single time he hit the floor. So there was no, well, I had a bad game. Well, okay, he had a bad game, but he still was going to find a way. So he had a principle that he would always say from time to time, the score is always 0-0, because he was such an incredible defensive player that if he wasn't scoring and you didn't score, he was still in the game. So as great as he was on the offensive end, really he was a blue-collar, defensive, grinded-out type of player who just happened to be a great offensive player. And as you know, Rich, you've been around, defense is about effort and energy, right? Every night you can be a great defensive player. Every night you can give that type of effort. So he just gave all of us who were around him a different way, because he was going to find a way to win the game no matter what. He was going to find a way. He was going to, if he needed to get an offensive rebound, if he needed to get a steal, if he needed to make a defensive stop, he was going to do what was ever necessary to do that, because he had the skill set, but more importantly, he had the mental toughness to focus in and get the job done. And, people talk about doing things, but he could actually go out and do it, and he did it. So, you know what? We had to find a way to elevate our games, if you will, to maintain and support what he was doing, because he wasn't going to stop.
Do you ever get on you? Did he ever curse you out?
Of course. One of my fondest memories of Michael is that Michael was one of the guys, right? He loved being one of the guys, and he, when the Air Jordan and the cameras were off, he felt comfortable being one of the guys. So trash talking and being truthful with one another is part of building a relationship if you're going to achieve that level of success. But the thing is, Michael also would give it out, but the thing that was most impressive is he could take it.
Huh?
He could take it.
Who would give it to him? Who would give it to him?
There was nothing you couldn't say back to him.
Well, who
so
did
I don't know
that?
if that's going to come out. So he was truthful in his conversation, but he was respectful to the community areas, right? You know, when you covered a team, there wasn't music playing around. There wasn't people disrespecting each other in the community spaces. He was very respectful, but he also wanted to apply the pressure because he was a person. He was a very simple person. His only objective was to win. So he didn't have a hidden agenda. He wasn't interested in, well, I got to get 35 points. I got to win this game, and I got to do whatever is necessary to win this game. So as complicated as it may seem, it was very, very simple because he was going to do what he had to do for one objective, to win. And anything else, you know, that's you didn't know who he was. And as long as you had that same goal, then you had no problems with that.
Sure, but who would give it back to him and over what?
You know what? I'm going to tell you, Bill Cartwright was a terrific veteran. He was a terrific veteran. And when things would happen outside of, when things happen, of course, Michael was our best player. Of course, he had a huge voice. But Bill Cartwright was when he did speak, it was well taken and received by everyone in that locker room. Because Bill was a pro's pro, right? Mm-hmm. He was a pro. He was a pro in the way he prepared, the way he played, what he was able to do for the team and all of those things. And he had a huge voice. And he was always there if things kind of got just off the tracks a little bit. Bill had a way, of getting us back on the tracks. That's why we always nicknamed him the teacher. He was the teacher. He was the one who kept us in line. We were all young. Bill had been around. People forget Bill was a 20-point scorer in his New York days. Mm-hmm. And then he transitioned his game to be a defensive player when he got to Chicago. So he did what he had to do, and he was well respected. So we just had great leadership. We had great veteran leadership. We had great leadership from our star, which was Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson. So we had all of the intangible things that was necessary for us to compete and win at the highest level.
And that's my last question for you, B.J. Armstrong. How did Phil make it all work? You had a front row seat. I know you love and respect that guy. You want to talk about personalities. My gosh. The alpha dog of all alpha dogs is Michael Jordan. And then everything else that you just mentioned, Pippen wanting to get paid, all of that. How did Phil Jackson make it all work from your perspective?
Well, first, Phil Jackson was very clear in that, he was coaching. Every time he would give a speech, he understood that he was giving 12 different speeches for the pregame speech. Phil Jackson understood the mindset of what it was like to be a player, and I think he learned that from, being a player. I think there's something that you understand how to operate in this dysfunctional environment, right? And Phil Jackson, the more chaos for Phil Jackson, the better he is. He's better when there's chaos. If there's nothing going on, he's a really good coach. But if there's chaos, if there's something going on, if there's whatever, he's that much better. So I think what made Phil Jackson connect with this group is because we were a group. The more drama and chaos was going on off the court, Michael Jordan was that much better. Our team was that much better. Phil Jackson functioned that much better. He was so much better of a coach when when our backs were against the wall. Phil Jackson would be so mad sometimes that he wouldn't even call a timeout if a team made a 6-8-0 run. And in a crazy way, we respected that because we're like, oh, this guy's just as crazy as we are. So the connection of knowing that, hey, this guy's the same as us. He's a little off center. I'm a little off center. Well, you know what? We had something in common. And even though we were all different from different backgrounds, he connects with the dysfunction of what this league is. Coaching an NBA team, let alone an NBA superstar, that's a very difficult thing. Phil Jackson gets it. whatever it is, he gets that, and he has a connection with the players. He has a connection with the team, and I can tell you what, if you have a team that was ready to win, I couldn't think of a better coach to get you over the top than Phil Jackson. And not only did he do that in Chicago, he did that in L.A., and that was a gift that he had. He knew how to function in the chaos, and he was and the more chaotic it was, he was better. So I think some people have a talent. That was his talent.
BJ, this has been awesome. I knew it would be, and I knew. I'm like, let's have a different guest on every Monday after The Last Dance. Let's get BJ Armstrong on first. And I knew after I'd talk to you, I'd want nobody else for the rest of the next 5 weeks.
Well,
Hope you're free.
So kind. Thank you. Please tell Suzie and the family I said hello.
Thanks, BJ.
And anytime, my friend.
Right
and,
back
you're
at
the
you.
best.
You're the best, too. That's BJ Armstrong right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Love that guy. We just scratched the surface.
Oh, baby.
Do you notice how he was always, whenever asked for something specific about what was going on in that locker room, he always went big picture. He's smart. Also, he's current agent in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I know, look, I know we're supposed to be Chicago-centric here, but I'm from New York City. You know what I'm taking from this? Okay. So, guys, a 20-point per game scorer at the center position. How many championships did Bill Cartwright win in New York City? Phil Jackson works at his best when he is in the middle of chaos. What's more chaotic than working for James Dolan? How'd he do working in that chaos? How'd he do? How many championships did he bring? Yep.
0.
Forwards, the New York Knicks. Everywhere Ewing went, there was Jordan. Oh, ripped my heart out and showed it to me pumping all the time.
The best part is they showed Patrick Ewing. Of course, he's the Georgetown head coach, sponsored by Jordan Brand.
There you go.
He's got the Jordan Brand right on his
Why
chest.
not?
Yep.
All right, we've got tons of phone calls to get to. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. We will, as they say in the business, empty the phone banks when we come back. The friggin' Knicks.
I mean, poor.
The friggin' Knicks.
Oakley gets dished to
Oh, yeah,
them.
Oakley.
I forgot about all that.
Oh, yeah, Oakley was
I
Jordan's
completely
protector.
forgot all that, yeah.
Got rid of him.
And then he was Ewing's protector. He was John
Yeah.
Stark's protector.
Yep.
He
Oh,
was
man.
he was one
Your
of my
team
favorite
was
Knicks of all
this
time.
Close.
I
They
know.
were this close.
I know. Actually, there's a whole documentary on No Dance. It's called No Dance, No Dancing.
No dancing.
No dancing.
You'll always have Larry Johnson's four-point play.
1 for 18 dancing. That's what it's going to be.
Oh, come on. John Starks is a good man.
He is. Came out of nowhere.
He had a bad night.
Hey,
It happens.
some franchises get their franchise bedrock, like the Bulls did. Jackpot. Knicks get Ewing. Jackpot, right? Right? Just at a time that a 6'6" guy, let's build around him and totally change the way the game's played. Got it. Okay. That was another thing from The Last Dance.
Yeah.
Who builds a team out of 6'6" guy?
yeah.
Nobody.
They interviewed Mark Eaton.
Mark Eaton.
7-7.
Mark
Or
Eaton
7-6, whatever they said.
did
That was a great
not
line.
age well.
That was a great line.
Right. Just at that time.
no.
Let's draft Ewing. Just at that time.
You don't know, though.
Oh, no, of course you don't know.
You don't know.
You know what I
Brady,
mean?
199.
Never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Oh, here we go.
This is, by the way, this is amazing.
The NFL draft will be without an important tradition. Record your booze, then okay, whatever.
It's sponsored by Bud Light. No, it's real.
Oh, we'll
It's for
deliver
cha-
the
it's for
booze, the
charity.
draft, and for each
Yeah, it's for
boo
charity.
the commissioner, they'll donate $1 to NFL Draft-a-thon up to $5. Great.
It's
Has
really.
this been approved by the NFL?
Bud Light has posted this out. They're a corporate partner.
Boo
It's
the
great.
commish.
Boo
That
the,
is great.
hashtag boo the commish.
I mean, so bad.
It is one of the greatest draft night traditions, though.
1 year in Radio City.
Roger likes it. He gets out and he does this. He soaks
You guys
it up.
lay it
Look at you
out.
calling him
stopped.
Roger. Couple times you spend a couple Super Bowls in his
Yeah, before
suite.
that.
Big man. Big
Before
man.
that.
Big man. Showing up in his Red Sox hat.
He
to
was
the
giving
commissioner.
me grief.
I know.
Because you're wearing a Red Sox hat.
But I was pacing around the suite, and he goes, "You nervous? You feel all right?"
You loved him. You were ready to go in like this is the guy that
He's
banned Tom Brady.
I told you.
And then you loved him.
Roger's a great guy.
Uh-huh.
Commissioner
Roll your break.
Goodell,
Roll your break. So, we just went to break talking, lamenting as a Knicks fan watching The Last Dance. Hey, everybody, and if you might be laughing at me about the Knicks, blah, 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 get ready. It's going to be your turn. Pistons fans, going to be your turn. Utah Jazz fans, going to be your turn. Blazer fans, your turn's coming. Name it. Your turn's coming. Everybody. He got everybody. Jordan got everybody.
I would love to have seen him stay. We were talking about this being Brockman, play the Lakers, that early Lakers.
Well, Shaq, we'll get Shaq on because Shaq has already said that his Laker three-peat would beat the name of Jordan three-peat team. His three-peat team would do it.
I would love to have seen them in their...
Jordan at 37, near 2000 against...
No. I think he would say his prime versus their prime. Shaq is, let's not forget what a different player Shaq was.
Shaq, Rodman, and all those guys playing.
It'd be fun.
It'd be awesome.
We talk about how there's nobody like Jordan. There's nobody like Shaq.
It'd be fun.
Phil, he coached them all.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
That's the other thing. Mitch. That's the other thing. Phil Jackson doesn't leave to coach those Lakers teams.
Who's coaching the Lakers?
That's the big difference.
Here's the amazing thing, too. Like I'm saying, it's going to be a nightmare for Knicks fans to watch this rest of this, and the Jazz fans, and the Blazers fans, and the Cavs fans, the Pacers fans, the Pistons fans. It's all coming. You know who might be the toughest one is Bulls fans. Because they're they're seeing Tim Floyd is coming at the end of this thing, and they're like, no, please no.
Yeah,
Let's
how about
go back in the DeLorean and say no.
Yeah.
Tim Floyd, no.
How about that? Tim Floyd went fishing with Jerry Kraus, got invited to Jerry's daughter's wedding that Phil did not get invited to. Really weird, man.
844-204-RICH. Let's go to Steve in Houston's been waiting quite some time. Let's take his phone call here live on NBCSN, SiriusXM, and YouTube.com/Rich Eisen Show. What's up, Steve?
Hope everybody's healthy and everything. Just want to say
right
when the Rockets won those two. Thank you. When the Rockets won those two championships, I have to hear from everybody. Well, if Jordan would have been playing, they wouldn't have won those championships. But that was neither here nor there. I was going to ask you, with the NFL draft, with the 11th pick, if you're Joe Douglas, would you go after Beckham or would you go out and get CeeDee Lamb? As a Raiders fan, we're hoping that they pick Beckham and everything. And also, we need a cornerback, and we're looking at Henderson, McKinney, and Diggs. And I just want to get your thoughts about who you think the Jets are going to pick, and it's going to be interesting. And I think Tua, he might drop it, but him and Abear really are, as you know, the NFL draft is always a crapshoot, and it's always interesting because of all the trades and everything.
All right, let me quickly do that. I think the Jets go protector for Sam Darnold. They have to. It's a very, very deep receiver draft. Get somebody. I mean, DK Metcalf wasn't a first rounder. I could go on and on and on about Deebo Samuel wasn't a first rounder. I mean, and these guys were transformative as rookies. So the Jets go lineman there, and maybe the Raiders feel the same way about a wide receiver too, and they go and get C.J. Henderson, who I think Mayock loves. Those are my 2 cents on that. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. And Tua dropping? No way. I would be totally stunned. Zoom into the draft-a-thon because I will be a must-see if Tua's dropping. I will be a must-see. Evan in Columbus, Ohio. What's up? Is the school down south? Is that what I'm supposed to say? What's up, Evan?
Hey, Rich. Well, hey, listen, it's a brave new world, and I'm of the school of thought that it's not Christmas until Hans Gruber falls from Nakatomi Plaza.
Boy.
Thank you, Evan.
And, well, hey, listen, and it's not the NFL Combine until I see Rich Eisen in a pinstripe suit.
I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, and what if it's not the NFL draft until I see Roger Goodell in a Barca lounger? I think that maybe we should look at this new platform as something for the future.
Look at you! Look at Evan coming in and just
connected dots.
He's connecting dots.
But what was that whistling in the background?
I know, Evan. Where are you?
Well, hey, I'm on my back patio in Columbus, Ohio. It's a sunny day.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Enjoy the moment. Thanks for the call, Evan. Thank you. Just in case everybody's wondering about, first of all, I don't believe I am the Hans Gruber of the combine, and I don't believe Lucas Oil Stadium is Nakatomi Plaza. Okay, and I also don't believe Die Hard is a Christmas movie, which is just, to me, just because, all right, that they're playing Christmas music and that it's a Christmas party. A Christmas movie, and I won't go down this wormhole right now because you and Jake Tapper of CNN are completely opposite of this.
I'm with you, Rich.
And you're with me.
100%.
All right? Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. It's a Wonderful Life is a Christmas movie.
Yes.
Miracle on 34th Street, which I know was put out in the summer, is a Christmas movie. All right? Sergeant Al Powell trying to save Nakatomi Plaza from being blown up. There's nothing Christmas about that. Nobody got their wings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but people were saved at the end.
Somebody got their wings.
Oh, my God.
Fell off the building.
Don't worry, there'll be time for that.
Just saying.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Tom in Iowa. What's up, Tom?
Hi, yeah. First off, love BJ Armstrong from Iowa.
Of course.
Go Hawkeyes.
Of course.
Got more of a comment than a question. You mentioned earlier on the show, you seem to kind of take the stance that the NFL draft shouldn't happen, especially with the glitch and the reporting. That's the way I took it anyway.
No, I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite. But again, my job is to talk about the draft. My job is to broadcast the draft. So clearly I want the draft to happen. If my job was depending on getting the draft right and the draft picks right, I would want to make the entire situation as normal and as comfortable for me as possible. And setting up a whole new IT system and phone communication system is something I would want to avoid. So I totally understand draft evaluators and management in that regard not wanting to do it. But I think it's something that everybody could use right now, personally. So that's my stance on that, Tom.
100% agreed. Right now, if Joe Burrow could juggle, I would watch an hour of that. I mean, we're so sports.
He might. Tom, based on everything I saw at LSU last year, I think he can juggle. You know, I think he can. I think he can. Thanks for the call, Tom. I appreciate it. Oh, yeah.
There's nothing that kid can't do right now.
By the way, I know I had my fun at the end of the last hour about, I never want that conversation on the phone with a loved one about something not working in the house IT-wise, and I told my IT guy, my AV guy, I never want that call from home saying, how does this thing work? And I gave an example that I want to make sure, you know how some people speak to an audience of one person in particular out there, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to one person in particular at home, the love of my life, who, again, I get a call. How does this work? I'm like, there's a red button. I don't see a red button. I see a green button. I'm like, there is a red button. And, everybody's been in that conversation with a loved one, and it very rarely goes well. The same way that B.J. Armstrong said the end of a dynasty, it doesn't end well. Those conversations, they usually don't end well. You know when they particularly don't end well? When there wasn't a red button, but there was a green button after all. That's when it's particularly bad. There is a red button. I don't see one. There's a green one. What are you talking about? There's a red. Oh, gosh. Oh, boy. Don't want to go home when that happens. I want to thank today's guests. Mike Freeman was our first guest up on our SiriusXM, youtube.com/Rich Eisen show first hour. And then when we popped on the air on NBCSN, Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. Check out the PFT PM podcast with me. And who are the other two guests?
Joe Burrow and Chase Young.
Oh, yeah. He's got them on, too. By the way, I think that's a heck of a sell for his podcast. A heck of a sell. Jordan Palmer, want to thank him for coming on. And B.J. Armstrong, want to thank them all. All right, pop that tweet up. Apparently, did the NFL say yes to this? Because I know Bud Light is a sponsor of the NFL, right?
Yeah.
They can't let the important tradition of booing the commissioner not stand. So if you record your boos, then post and tag all of that, and then we'll deliver the boos to the draft. Get it? BOOS, boos.
Hey, now.
And they're going to donate $1 to NFL Draftathon up to $500,000.
Yeah, hashtag boo the commish.
Appreciate the donation of Draftathon.
Cool. All right, we got an NFL move that just happened.
What do we have?
The Jaguars release Marquise Lee, one of their better receivers.
He just couldn't stay healthy. Ever. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Any other updates of anybody complaining about the mock draft not going well?
Speaking of the Jaguars, Yannick Ngakoue and Tony Khan have been going at each other on Twitter today.
So that's not going well.
That's not going well. Communication issues there between.
Is that right? Bandwidth. There's a lot of bandwidth
problems. A lot of bandwidth
they
issues.
They got to work on that.
Those two. Yeah,
okay. I want to thank tomorrow's guests in advance. We're excited for Tuesday's edition of the Rich Eisen Show. On tomorrow's show, John Lynch will be first up. Can't wait to ask him about his thoughts on the mock draft, how that all went. From his 19 televisions and his beautifully appointed desk.
His setup
Look at that.
is amazing.
Look at this it's a 3-phone, 7-screen situation.
An esports gamer would be proud of that setup.
This is the Michael Jordan of home setups right now.
That is.
Chris Collinsworth of Sunday Night Football, Football Night in America, Pro Football Focus. That's a nice photograph of Chris right there.
All right.
Me and Chris enjoyed sitting next to the Emmy-nominated Bill Belichick of the NFL 100 All-Time Team Series.
Be honest, he's winning.
Billy Gardell, the Yinzer from Pittsburgh. He'll talk about the Steelers draft. Always love talking to him. He was supposed to be on last fall, but could not make it because he lost his voice screaming at the Browns-Steelers game. That's how diehard Billy Gardell is.
That sounds about right.
All right. He said, I can't talk because I lost my voice screaming at the game. He was at Heinz Field. That's a fact. Michael Strahan will be on Wednesday's show. Eric Stone Street on Thursday's show. We're set for draft week. How about you? We will see you on Tuesday's edition of the Rich Eisen Show right here on NBCSN, Sirius XM, and YouTube.com/Rich Eisen Show.